Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, like always, and welcome back to day 324 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, it is a brand new week of the war. The old map has now been archived, and a new map has taken its place, tracking down the next 7 days of the war and how they turn out on video and also on the frontline changes. And so, before we get into that today, we've got something very important to cover, because it looks like everyone in the world has just been shocked. The entire world has been completely turned on its head, because yesterday the news came out that Ukrainian forces had withdrawn from the town of Soledar, and Wagner forces were closing in from both flanks to take the center of the village, but today they haven't. And the Ukrainians apparently are still there a little bit inside the town. So it appears that one of two things has happened. Either the Wagner unit has never been in the process of taking the town, that part of the battle has never come to be, and for some reason, there was a whole bunch of news and information coming out that made it look like that. The other reality may be that the Ukrainians have actually launched a small counterattack and have retaken the town of Soledar and are holding a small part of it on the very far east, on the far western side of the village. We don't really know what the breakdown of this is. We're going to be covering tonight and showing all of the videos we have, and also how Deep State UA has also not changed their frontline map in the area. Although the Russians have made a couple of more land gains around the area, it still shows that the center of Soledar is still controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces, and that the entire YouTube world, the entire news world, may have just been misled, like we were as well, to think that Soledar was already being taken by the Wagner unit. So, without further ado, before we get to that news tonight, we have some pretty interesting stuff to cover inside of Russia. Of course, Russia is always the place for really interesting things like steel, workplace incidents, and also stupidity. The Russians' largest export in the world is their brand of stupidity, which we call stupnosta, which is Russian for stupid idiot. Anyways, we're going to be... I'm kidding, it's not. Anyways, we're going to be moving down into Moscow and checking this out, because today a Russian general, the guy who does the report on the Ukrainian losses inside of Russia, he declared that the Russians today alone, Matthew, destroyed 4 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles.
You know, I think there's one problem with that. You know what that is, Enforcer?
And what's that?
Are Bradleys even in there?
From what we know, they have already been transported to Ukraine, but none of them have ever been used yet. So we're assuming that either
I didn't even think they were there yet.
Well, yeah, we had seen like a week ago, Matt. Do you remember the trains in Bulgaria and Poland traveling down the rail route towards Ukraine? So that pretty much confirms that a train has already made it into Ukraine with Bradleys on board. But the fact that they've never even been used inside of Ukraine on a front line, and we've never gotten video evidence of it, seems to be a little bit too much to say that they've already destroyed 4 of them. But let me show you all the clip where he actually says this.
Боевых действий на данном направлении противник потерял 11 танков, 17 боевых машин пехоты, в том числе 4 БМП Брэдли производства США.
And you can see him right there say Bradley. He said BMP Bradley. And he was talking about 4 Bradleys that have been destroyed by BMPs. And I think that's really hilarious on 2 points, Matthew. First off, he's saying that the BMP, which is the actual, I guess you could say, Russian equivalent to a Bradley, destroyed the Bradley. So it's literally just a head-on with a comparable vehicle in its class. It's like the Ford F-150 going up against a Chevy Colorado or whatever like that. It's almost just like that. It's like our BMPs went up against a Bradley and destroyed it. That's like saying it's so stupid. It's mentally challenged, the best way I can say it, that they would say something like that. You would assume if it was reasonable, you wouldn't say all 4 of them were destroyed by BMPs. You would say something like, one of them was destroyed by artillery, another one was destroyed by a tank, 2 of them were destroyed by BMPs. That sounds a whole lot more realistic than the BS they just put out. But they can't even make their BS realistic. And also, why in the world does this guy look like he's about to shoot his eye out, Matthew?
Well, it may be not too far from the truth.
I want a Red Ryder BB gun. That's what he looks like he's about to say. Like right there, right at this moment, he wants a Red Ryder BB gun. But moving on from that, we still got to talk about.
Wait a minute, is this the guy who just got put in the place of the guy that just got removed?
No, I don't think this guy's been doing this. I think for the whole war, he's kind of just like their press officer guy for the Ministry of Defense.
Okay.
So he's just one of those paper pushing people that are in Moscow that do all the reporting and stuff. But it's completely untrue, obviously. But I had to show you all this because, you know, every once in a while, and I have run into one person at university who is asking, where is the good Russian stuff? And I can't believe they're taking it so easy on the Ukrainians. You know, the typical kind of lines. This is the kind of stuff that the Russians are putting out. You know, 4 Bradleys destroyed in a day. You know, they aren't even using them yet. It's insane. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from this little propaganda clip and on into another bit of news from inside of Russia, which is, once again, fairly bizarre because today they had to get a man in Russia with a doctorate to explain where is Russian territory, like outside of Russia, pretty much. So let's see what this man has to say because I'm sure it's enlightening and very well educated.
Когда мы сделали неожиданный ход, мы увидели, что несколько дней вся западная дипломатия была занята тем, чтобы оправдать свой отказ в соблюдении рождественского перемирия. А это важнейшая вещь на самом деле. Во-первых, ни у одного государства бесконечного дипломатического ресурса нет. Если мы этого не делаем, то они тратят свои силы на то, чтобы принимать резолюции, осуждающие Россию. Они тратят свое время на то, чтобы по различным дипломатическим каналам перетаскивать на свою сторону, по крайней мере, нейтральные государства, а зачастую и вполне к нам положительно настроенные государства. А когда инициативу проявляем мы, они вынуждены начинают играть по нашей повестке, они вынуждены реагировать на нашу повестку. И важно в этом ключе продолжать нашу работу. И вот разговор, который касается международных организаций, правда, разные точки зрения, разные подходы существуют. Мое отношение предельно простое. Очень часто западные наши оппоненты ставят основной своей задачей нас оттуда исключить. Если мы на перегонки будем им доказывать, что нас даже исключать не надо, мы сами отсюда уйдем, мы вполне вероятно, что просто облегчим им работу. Не надо им ее облегчать, надо им навязать борьбы.
Oh, God! It's the devil!
Oh, the devil showed up for the debate.
Why in the world does he look like the devil today? Like, usually he just looks like a little gremlin or something. Today he literally looks like the physical embodiment of Satan. Hell, I mean,
eventually, if you spew the hatred enough, you eventually start looking like the devil.
You know, he's going to be like that movie that guy was in. I forgot what he is, but he's the guy on Jurassic Park who says life finds a way. He's like a Goldberg or something like that. Goldstein.
Yeah, I think Goldstein. Maybe?
Yeah, I think it's Goldstein. I think
Goldberg.
No, it's not Goldberg. I think it's Whoopi Goldberg. I'm thinking about the Goldstein guy. But you know, he's like that
Goldblum.
movie. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, that's actually the guy. Jeff Goldblum, who was in that Fly movie where he started to slowly turn into a fly, this guy is slowly turning into the literal devil. Like, it's just getting more and more physically towards that direction every day, man. I'm sure he goes home, like, you know, like Goldblum did in that movie where he's like, that fly has sticky hands. I guess we're in a sticky situation. And I bet you he goes home and he's like, it smells of sulfur. I guess someone farted around here. Or something like that every single day.
Даже не снилось такого. И сказки про то, что сейчас все закончится, и вот тогда мы начнем решать проблемы здесь и там, надо забыть. Никто ничего ждать не будет. Мы либо на каждом участке, на каждом фронте будем работать так, чтобы им просто возможности для передышки у них не было, либо мы просто будем облегчать им работу, отказываться от борьбы, от противостояния с ними и уходить там с тех площадок.
Also, I'd also like to make a point out and a nice shout out to the rip-off Sylvester Stallone right here, who's monologuing, who we will now call Silver Stallion, because he looks.
You think this guy looks like Sylvester Stallone?
Dude, he looks like a really, really big knockoff of Sylvester Stallone. This is like Sylvester Stallone's stuntman right here.
Эту борьбу можно было бы им навязать. Никто никогда не ставит себе целью вот посмотреть, чем закончится это противостояние на Украине. Оно будет идти бесконечно. До тех пор, пока не закончатся украинцы, потом начнут заканчиваться поляки, потом другие народы, которые можно бесконечно туда отправлять, снабжать вооружением для того, чтобы истощать наши ресурсы. И в этой связи нужно трезво оценивать ситуацию, четко для себя понимать, что этот год для нас будет очень тяжелым. Потому что чем в большей степени Украина будет терпеть крах на поле боя, я называю это Украиной условно, потому что если государство не производит собственного оружия, государство не покупает этого оружия самостоятельно, государство не в состоянии обеспечить функционирование собственной энергетики, всего остального, это симулятор государства, который, аватар такой, который подпитывается различными реальными силами,
Well,
которые...
isn't
за
that
ним
kind of
стоят.
Russia right now? Aren't they getting like supplies from North Korea and Iran to small degrees to keep going? Like, they can't even buy and produce their own weapons anymore. This guy's just talking out of his rear end right now. It's not even making any real sense because you can apply the same rules to Russia and they're not a country anymore. They're just an avatar too. That doesn't make any sense.
Но мы имеем дело вот с таким симулякром под названием Украина. Вот по мере того, как значит, эта фиаско будет все более и более очевидным, будут нарастать, и я согласен с Дмитрием Геннадьевичем, вероятности того, что против нас будут открывать второй фронт. Не в формальном, не в официальном смысле, а в том, в котором нас корпорация Рент радовала, значит, в кавычках, в докладах от 2019 года. Абсолютно точно, я уверен, что в ближайшее время мы будем иметь дело с резким обострением конфликта на Южном Кавказе между Арменией и Азербайджаном. Абсолютно точно мы будем иметь дело с обострением в Центральной Азии. Без этого мы точно не обойдемся. И мы вот здесь опять не должны ждать того, что, знаете, сейчас у нас вот все ресурсы задействованы на Украине, поэтому мы сейчас не можем этими вопросами заниматься. Вот когда закончим, тогда уже никто ждать не будет. Там нет идиотов, которые будут сидеть ждать, чтобы мы закончили
this guy
на
can
Украине.
talk.
Потом
I know. I
вернулись
mean,
на Южный
honestly, I'm gonna have to be honest with y'all. I'm gonna have to cut this here because he's saying so, like we said last night about another person. He's saying so much, but it's saying so little. There's really nothing for us to even commentate on here, and I'm really trying to find something about it. But what he just, to summarize what he just said here at the end before we move on, he's saying that there's going to be wars in Central Asia, probably in between Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan or Tajikistan, one of those countries, because they're having border clashes right now, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. Those are clearly obvious, but the idea of the Russians actually ever getting directly involved is highly unlikely because historically they never did. Even in the Nagorno-Karabakh war that occurred in 2020, they didn't really get directly involved. They brokered the peace, but that was it. So, you know, with that, we're going to end this because I can only handle so much of this, and this is boring as hell to me. And so we're moving on from that clip of news, and we're now going to be moving on into Germany because a lot of y'all have heard, and a lot of y'all know, that not only are British Challengers being sent to Ukraine, about 10 of them, and also Polish and Finnish Leopard tanks, but the Germans have been pressured a lot to try and send Leopard tanks of their own. We don't know what variant those would be if they were sent, whether they be Leopard 2A4s, Leopard 2A5s, or 2A6s, but we know that there are a load of Leopard tanks that the Germans could send. And the Germans made a statement today that was fairly interesting and somewhat bizarre to me, considering that a lot of countries in Europe are taking the initiative to send their own tanks. The Germans said in response today that they are waiting on the United States to make the first move. They said in their own words, which I'll show y'all, and let me get to this article real quick. The delivery of heavy weapons depend on coordination with our transatlantic partners, or transatlantic partners specifically as in the United States. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because why in the world are you waiting? Like, why in the world did you not wait on the United Kingdom, Finland, or Poland? You know, like, once they start sending tanks, why not say, okay, it's okay for us to send tanks now? Why in the world is all of the weight put on the United States? You know, Poland, the United Kingdom, and Finland didn't wait on America. Why in the world does Germany have to wait on America to send tanks? And based off of this picture, I don't know if this picture has any relevance to what's been reported right here, but these are Leopard 2A4s. If those are sent, we know that they're decent. The Turks have used a decent amount of Leopard 2A4s in their incursions into Syria, but at the same time, we actually have heard that some of these Leopard 2A4s have been lost by the Turks due to Syrian anti-tank guided missile fire. But still, the fact stands that the Germans appear to be having cold feet about sending their own tanks into Ukraine, and it appears that at the current moment, the United States will have to take a step forward and start delivering Abrams tanks to Ukraine before the Germans start sending their own Leopards. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news inside of Germany, and we're going to also be making sure that there's no additional international news. And so strap yourselves in, because we're about to be going into Ukraine, because that's all the news we have for the rest of this night. So we're going to get in there right now, and we're going to be going to Kyiv, because one thing that we always talk about a little bit is the civilians and citizens that are inside of Ukraine that have been involved in this war and caught themselves in all kinds of crossfire, under missile barrages and such things like that. And of course, pertinent infrastructure such as hospitals are always under the gun whenever these missile barrages occur. And in Kyiv, this can't be any more true. Kyiv is the capital city of Ukraine, and not only that, it usually has the most advanced facilities of any other city in the country. Not only that, but the largest and most up-to-date hospital in Ukraine is still trying to conduct vital heart surgeries on people that are necessary, and every once in a while, due to these missile attacks, they are having to operate without any real power from the grid, and they're having to get all of their power from generators. And so real quick, I'm going to show you all this video. This was actually made by Radio Free Europe, but before I do, I have to let you all know, if you are a little bit squeamish, this is not incredibly graphic, but if even the suggestion of surgery or anything similar is a little bit of something to make you faint, you may not want to watch this, because there is a little indication of it in here. I know Matthew's kind of one of those people, so I'm just kind of letting him know. If you need to look away from the screen and just read comments for a while, you might want to. So with that, here's the clip.
Умови дуже складні, бо постійно ми готуємось до блекауту. Ми закупили декілька генераторів, які підключили до операційної, до палати інтенсивної терапії, до інших відділень. Щоб власники прийшли до серця, збираємо ще третій. Ми пробурили свою скважину, ми маємо своє власне водопостачання. Ми перейшли на опалення нашою локальною системою і таким чином перейшли в такий автономний режим, як на підводному човні, коли все, що нам потрібно, ми маємо тут в інституті. Ми маємо запас крові, плазми, запас ліків, запас їжі. Ми обладнали наш підвал і сертифікували його як приміщення, де можуть знаходитись наші пацієнти і лікарі, і сестри під час ракетних атак, повітряної тривоги і таке інше.
3 рази в нас були аварійні відключення, це неможливо передбачити. Тому 3 рази ми попали, знаєте, трошки врасплох, як кажуть. Тому що ми плануємо свою роботу, у нас є пацієнти планові, у нас є ургентні операції. У нас є генератори, вони підключені, але, от знаєте, перший раз, коли ти все це переживаєш, коли треба налагодити всю цю роботу, і весь цей процес, це було неочікувано, ми не були до цього готові, хоча розуміли, що це може статися. Зараз вже ми більш такі професіонали, ми вже швидко переключаємось.
Старт.
Открутить. Сейчас. На випадок повного блекаута в нас є дизельний генератор 50 кВт, який запитує операційну, ГКС, реанімацію, скважину і каналізацію. Зараз ми його запустимо.
Ми жили тут весь цей час в підвалі з пацієнтами, тому що пацієнти всі після операції на серці з розрізаними і зашитими назад грудинами, і ми не могли їх покинути. Плюс ми всім сказали про те, що ми на робочих місцях, ми готові приймати поранених.
And with that, that's the end of the video. Of course, courtesy to Radio Free Europe for providing it, but you can see that this hospital is providing vital surgical care to some people who, of course, as we saw in the last bit, were subjected to a shot, apparently to the chest, or even worse, are having to also go through the rigors of having no power and having to turn on emergency generators to try and keep the operations going. And of course, that is something that is always a concern, and I guess you could say is a bit of an indirect war crime by the Russians. While knocking out the power grid and targeting civilian infrastructure is, of course, something of a war crime in its own, especially in the modern world, just to target and commit reprisals against the civilians with no strategic concerns involved. It is also showing what that actually entails. By knocking out the power grid, if this hospital didn't have generators, then pretty much everyone on that operating table in that hospital at that moment would end up succumbing to their injuries and dying. And most likely dying right on the table in front of the operating surgeons. And so it's good to know that the generators have been provided. And of course, a lot of organizations out there are still trying to provide generators to the Ukrainians, whether it be through NAFO or multiple other kinds. And I think even some of the fundraisers we have run have actually ended up getting generators for Ukraine. But still, it is good to know that they have them to make sure that the vital operations can continue to run. With that, we're now going to be moving on over into the eastern side of Ukraine, where most of the fighting is occurring. Well, all the fighting, actually. And we're going to be getting on into our location unknown, starting off with our first clip, where we saw an interview with an assault team leader. Now, we didn't get to know which assault team he was leading, but according to the interview, it appears that it may have been one we watched on infrared in the Bakhmut area yesterday. And I think you may remember that one, Matthew, where the grenades landed right on the Russians and some of them turned into, I guess you could say, tomato puree.
Puree.
Yeah. Puree, yeah. So here's the video clip of his interview. And it's actually really, really interesting here because this guy had no prior combat experience at all and led this assault. I guess you could say he's kind of like Ukraine's miniature version of Audie Murphy. And so here's the video.
В Україні дуже багато людей дивилось, але ми були знайомі. Було враження в мене, що я бачив на екрані якусь групу Рембо, які, в принципі, досконало, в принципі, є військовий професіонал.
Hang on, correction. We actually got a clip right here. I actually had not seen this part because I skipped through and didn't see this part of the clip. But this is actually one that we did watch a couple of days ago, and they were going through and they were chucking grenades into the dugouts that wouldn't surrender. The ones that would, they were immediately getting them out of there, taking their weapons and moving them further back to some other squad behind them. So pretty interesting. You see, this is actually the guy who led this assault that we watched on drone footage about a week ago.
Але тепер, я думаю, всім буде цікаво подивитись, хто справді здійснив цей подвиг. Бійці 108-го гірсько-штурмового батальйону 10-ї гірсько-штурмової бригади. Відоме відео. Коли це сталося, те, що ми зараз бачимо?
25 числа.
25 грудня.
Так. На Різдво. 7 чоловік були поділені на 2 групи. Заходили справа, зліва.
The trap in the background.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Тут було 2 на цій позиції. Також в них було 3 пулемета. Це вже друга позиція. Тут було 6, да, в одному. Тут 4 сиділо. Це ми спочатку кинули гранату. Тут де ці 6 чоловік сиділи.
Як вам, ви так легко розповідаєте, як ви так підійшли на людей, де 3 кулемета на позиції? Як вам вдалося?
Коптер нас супроводжав. Все йшло через рацію, що спокійно можете заходити, нікого немає. Перед цим попрацювала наша артилерія, міномети.
І ви так впевнено зайшли, скільки вас було?
7.
7 ваша група. Так. І скільки там було противника на позиції, яка знищена?
На одній позиції було 4, на другій було 10.
Тобто ви всімох захопили, знищили 14 бійців противника. От яка красива відео.
Good lord, I forgot in this video the sheer number of prisoners that were when we watched the clip without the interview about a week or 2 ago, I think. And I remember at the end we were like, dang, they took a load of prisoners. They did. They took 14 of them.
Група. Скільки полонених ви взяли?
10.
Oh, it's in. Sorry.
Трофеї, які були?
Було 7 покемонів, пулеметів, СВД ми взяли. Були ночні прицели, там таке різні.
Зв'язок, тобто у них
так,
це було.
Так, зв'язок так
противник
само
був
був.
озброєний нормально, так?
Так.
Розкажіть, будь ласка, хто був ви старший цієї групи? Да?
Так.
Будівельник з Чернівців, да? От таке реальне, це просто велике драматичне відео, дуже великий військовий успіх. І розкажіть, будь ласка, як ви готувалися до цього? Хто в вашій групі? Чи були якісь ще контрактники, бійці?
Ні.
Тобто всі, як і ви,
всі
добровольці, мобілізовані?
Всі мобілізовані добровольці.
Всі мобілізовані. Угу. Розкажіть, як ви почули про це завдання, ваше відчуття, коли це командир вам сказав?
Так, прийшов командир, включив відео, сказав, що вже 2 дні там нікого не спостерігається. Ми посиділи, обдумали, як зайти, що зробити, скільки нас має бути людей. Це все проходило десь в течение 2 днів, ми думали, дивилися, передивлялися. Тому, як завжди, працювала наша арта, працювали наші міномети, працював наш коптер, який спостерігав за цим усім, який дивився, який нас коригував, який коригував нашу арту. Тому пустила команда, щоб висуватися. Почали висуватися. Коптер також все нам передавали по рації, де що є, де що знаходиться.
От маршрут підходу, бачите, ви так з флангу зайшли, да? Ви яким чином перевіряли, там мінування могло бути, чи ще щось? Чи засідка якась, чи спостережний пункт?
Того і більш-менш проходили флангами, бо в основному середину посадки стараються замінувати. То старалися йти справа-зліва, щоб зменшити ризик свій.
Це неймовірний подвиг. Просто неймовірно, як вам це вдалося. Скільки у вас досвід вже був таких штурмових дій?
Так, був досвід уже штурмових дій.
Скільки у вас таких атак ще було?
Така, щоб аж така масірована, це була друга атака.
А до того ви скільки вже в бойових діях берете участь у таких, як піхота, як піхотинець?
Вже більше як півроку.
Півроку?
Так. Більше як півроку.
В яких боях ви брали участь, в яких місцях?
Під Спірним, саме більше ми сидимо в Яковлівці ми були. В основному тут ми під Спірним знаходимося.
Які емоції були, коли ви зайшли на позицію? Що ви відчували, які давали команди?
Я не знаю, не можу передати емоції, то адреналін зашкалював. Але нам, дякувати Богу, повезло, що так все пройшло, що вони навіть не сподівалися, що ми зайдемо, не чекали на нас. Всі були нормально настроєні, всі хороші хлопці, які розуміють, що треба робити, як робити. Все виконувалося, що сказав, то виконувалося, що не було ніяких у нас з цим проблем.
У вас було безперервне управління, зв'язок був із командуванням, і між собою.
Так.
Тобто ви постійно розуміли обстановку, наскільки я так розумію, так?
Так. Постійно у нас у всіх майже були рації, і всі чули, що передавало нам командування, і так само між собою спілкувалися.
Андрій Михайлович, ким ви були до 24 лютого?
Працював простим строїтелем на будові.
На будові?
Так.
Де працювали?
В Чернівецькій області.
В Чернівецькій області.
Так.
Якийсь бойовий досвід у вас був? Ви воювали раніше?
Ні, тільки строкова служба.
Тобто це ви прийшли у лютому, пішли захищати Україну і, в принципі, от в перший раз стикнулись з бойовими діями.
Так.
And so that's the end of the interview, but a really interesting one, and giving you an insight into the kind of soldiers who are leading these fights and battles and winning them inside of Ukraine. These guys are not all the time just well-trained, crack soldiers on contract. Some of them were volunteers that were brought up at the very beginning of the war when the Russians invaded, much like this guy. And he's now leading assault teams, taking on Russian positions and pretty much flooring them. They didn't even take a single loss in that video and ended up capturing 10 of the Russians. And I think, as we saw in the video, taking out about 6 of them or a little bit more. And so with that's the end of that clip. But once again, very interesting look into a assault team leader. And with that, we're going to be moving on to the next clip where we saw some Russian soldiers getting the short end of some grenades. When you see the first bomblet hit, we can now see the second bomblet coming down and hitting as well. And that's the end of the clip, but I think you can tell that they're not having that great of a time. I'm sure that the commander, knowing that this area got bomblet again, is explosive with the news. With that, we're going to be moving on to the next bit of Location Unknown News, where we saw the guys who did like the little song thing with the weapons a while ago, and they've come up with a new one. So here's the clip.
Oh.
I think they're having fun.
Crazy talent.
They got some really good talent. I don't know how much free time they have in that part of the front line, but it must be unlimited because they are really, really good at that. And they've now come up with 2 bangers. With that, we're moving on to the next bit of Location Unknown News, where we also saw that the harvest is bountiful. In case of y'all didn't know, you can actually grow your own mortar shells in your backyard. Now, before I say this, I have to say this is all a joke because I don't know if YouTube's going to be like, oh, you know. But anyways, if you take a 5.45, like this one, well, let me show you all a picture of it. If you take a 5.45 like that, Matthew, and you dig up a little hole in the ground and you plant it, and then you pour water on it daily and make sure it gets enough sunlight, it will grow. Kind of like a tube root, kind of like a potato underground. And once it's fully grown, Matthew, you too can harvest your own 120mm mortar shells. And I think they're more like 120mm mortar shells right out of the ground. Watch this guy harvest this bountiful plenty, cornucopia of mortar shells. And look at that. It's all grown and ripe.
Wow.
Земелька нам дала.
Hope he missed that kick.
Щось якийсь не той врожай, тобі не кажеться? Ну, не те вродило, що мало. О, їх там, і там ще збоку, так.
We can see that they're using their farming implement, as this guy literally makes the sound in the metal detector. They're using their farming implement to try and find the rest of the tube roots so that way they can dig them up and, of course, use them a little bit later. So let's listen to that guy make that sound again.
They got the metal detector plays techno.
Ой, ну що, блядь, 3 часу.
Also, I see the bots are out in force tonight.
Ще один лендіс.
Just look at
Посадили. Треба зенітки садити. Клас. Шикарно взагалі. Ось такий от урожай на полі.
I gotta tell y'all, if I knew that that was possible this entire time, man, I would have been growing them. I'm a bit of a grower myself. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from this little clip. Pretty interesting to see that the Russians apparently they just hid 120mm shells in the ground, and the Ukrainians found them later after retaking the area. But with that, we're moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw the Russian losses for the day. And of course, they're still fairly high. Now, finally, the Russian deaths per day estimate has now dropped down to about the same number that the British were losing per day on average in the Second World War. So, good job on that. You know, they're not doing well, they're still doing terribly by that metric, but they're not doing as bad as they once were. Good job for Russia. I'm sure they'll make this a huge propaganda coup. Moving on from that, interestingly enough today, there were no armored personnel carriers destroyed, no supply trucks, and no tanks destroyed at all. None of them. We didn't see a single one get destroyed, which is fairly interesting. We've never seen armored personnel carriers, supply trucks, and tanks not get destroyed at all on a single day. So I believe this may be the first time since the beginning of the war that we haven't seen any new vehicles being destroyed that are either supporting the front line or are operating on the front line. But we did see 4 extra artillery pieces get destroyed, 3 drones, a helicopter, and also an anti-aircraft warfare system get destroyed today. So in a way, they did make up for some of the losses that they weren't able to knock out in frontline vehicles. I'm really perplexed as to how there are no armored personnel carrier and tank losses today. There is a lot of armored personnel carriers involved on the front line right now with the Russian forces, and there are less and less tanks, to say the least, about the situation that are getting involved on the side of the Russian forces. But we didn't see any of them get destroyed today. And I think, Matthew, to be honest with you, this is a fairly good indication that these numbers have to be fairly accurate, because if this was the Russians, they would just inflate the numbers. They would say 12 tanks were destroyed. But today, we're seeing that nothing's practically been destroyed. Almost nothing but infantry has been wiped out.
That's true. And also, I noticed they haven't lost any skid steers today, so they got lucky.
Yeah, no Bobcat skid steers. They're fine. So with that, that's the casualty report for the day. Not the best casualty report we've ever gotten, but still losing 430 troops in a single day, dead. That's not good. You can phrase that any way you want. At least they didn't lose any tanks or armored personnel carriers. Losing 430 infantry a day is not good at all. That is terrible. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip of news, where we also saw some incredibly cold weather. And I saw someone ask a question earlier, and they said, is it still freezing cold in Ukraine? And the answer is yes, and Russians are still freezing on the front lines. And you can see right here, a Ukrainian dealing with the cold weather, and what his pants are like as a result. And I don't know if that's negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, but either one is incredibly cold. When you see his pant right here, and it's literally frozen solid. Pretty bizarre, if you ask me, coming from the south. I've never had my pants freeze right onto me, like solid. So I've never seen anything like this before. And this is terrible conditions. Now, let's do this real quick. Negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative 10 Fahrenheit. Hopefully I'm spelling that correctly. Is negative 23 degrees Celsius. So quite cold. So if we put in negative 10 here, that means it would be 13 degrees Fahrenheit.
So that's how cold it is, and his pants are freezing?
Yes.
Well, it was just like 10 degrees yesterday here in Alabama. It didn't feel like that cold. I mean, it felt pretty cold, but not like that cold.
I'm actually thinking that may have been negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, because I've never seen pants freeze like that before, and I think that it just being 13 degrees Fahrenheit, they wouldn't do that quickly. I'm not really sure. I haven't been in cold weather enough to know, but I feel like it's most likely negative 10 Fahrenheit, not negative 10 Celsius, because that looks like it is terrible to be out there. It's so cold that if you get any moisture on your pants, they just freeze into place. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of location unknown news, our last bit, and now we're finally going to be moving on over into some frontline news. But before we get there, we still have one bit left in Kharkiv, where we can see that power crews are trying to restore power. And of course, courtesy once again to Radio Free Europe for showing us this, as they're having to deal with some challenges of their own, specifically minefields. And so here's the clip.
Ну, люди нам допомагають, звісно, по порихам допомагають, розказують, де що, які лінії де побиті, куди йти, щоб уже було проще нам швидше шукати. Ми йдемо, вожани кажуть, тут, вони там десь навіть подобавляли провода, там десь прибирали, щоб їх як не покрали, і кажуть, виносять, віддають, отак от. В принципі, допомагають, зараз допомагають везде.
85%? That's actually pretty big.
I wish the power crews could move that fast in Alabama sometimes.
Yeah, gee. I mean, these people are in a war. 85% of it's back up. We can't even get that in Alabama.
в селах не так страшно, страшніше, коли по полях. Там, тому що дуже багато мін. І особливо пластикові міни, які не знаходяться міношукачами. Дуже важко знайти навіть мінерам їх. Ну, дуже обережним треба бути.
Ой, очень дуже раді. Дуже раді. Потому что, сколько было бы света, это было бы еще страшное дело. Это хоть что-то немножко, как легче стало, легче намного.
Має 5 ступеней очистки, в тому числі обратний осмос-систему. Вона може брати абсолютно любу воду з річки, з колодязя, там навіть морську воду очищувати і робити її придатною повністю для споживання.
Oh goodness, that's a small boat
Yeah,
for
that
the
is
entire
a
place.
small boat, yeah. Man, that's got to be hell on earth to live out there.
Діткам банани, мамі на день народження квітка. Все ж таки хочеться її привітати з днем народження.
She's in good spirits about it.
Yeah, I mean, they always have great spirits no matter what they're being faced with, but, you know, we've dealt with having no water and at another time having no power and therefore really no water. And for them to have been living like this for 10 months and also having to use a boat to get across a river to do anything that's meaningful, you know that's got to be really difficult to go through on a daily basis, but they're still keeping high spirits, which honestly I'm kind of dumbfounded at that. I don't even know how they're keeping high spirits. They definitely have a much greater patience for things like that than me, and they definitely understand that it's something that can't be controlled due to the war. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and finally into some really old footage we haven't seen before, and incredibly interesting footage as well. This footage was taken somewhere in the northern Kharkiv area, right above Kharkiv city, when the Russians actually controlled this area by foreign volunteers that are American and took out a BMP. It is one of the most interesting videos I've seen because the reaction of these guys in the middle of a firefight blowing up a BMP is like they were watching the Super Bowl. So before we get to that real quick, we have to go over the poll because I've seen that Matthew's thrown up one or maybe two of them. I haven't been able to see if there was a second one, but the first one was really interesting. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so there are 2 polls to go over, and the very first one said, do you believe Bradleys are already in Ukraine? It looks like 54% said yes, 29% said no, and 18% said unsure. On this one, I'm going to personally have to say unsure because we haven't seen video evidence of them actually being received by Ukraine just yet. We have seen them on the train, like the enforcer mentioned earlier, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Ukraine has actually taken possession of them just yet. Enforcer, what say you?
I would say they most likely are in Ukraine. We did see the videos of them being transported by train, and we know that if anything's being transported by rail, it's practically already made it into the country by the time we see that film. So I would say, in my opinion, yes. They're not being used yet. They're probably still going through training on the Bradleys to make sure that they're operational. The crews know how to work them. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And let's get on into the next one.
And the second poll says, is Germany's stance towards sending modern weapons to Ukraine cowardly? 58% said yes, it is cowardly. 22% said somewhat, but they have their reasons. 11% said unsure, and 10% said no, it is not cowardly. Now, I've got to say, I did word the poll pretty aggressively, and I think cowardly might be a little bit too strong of a word to use, so I'm not going to say yes to that. I'm going to say somewhat, but they have their reasons. I'm sure Germany, doesn't take it lightly to send their modern best equipment to a country that's in an active war. So they probably have, their own internal reasons for it. But at the same time, if other countries are sending them, it seems like they might, join on the bandwagon with that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it is not really cowardly. I would say it's most likely spineless. To wait for America to do something because every other country in Europe, it seems, like the British, the Polish, and the Finnish, are sending tanks without waiting on America. Why in the world are the Germans making that a point to wait for us, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Also, to circle back to something, because we were talking about the Bradleys being in Ukraine, someone said our news point said that 4 Bradleys have been destroyed, so they're definitely in country, but the whole point of showing that was to say that they're not even being used yet. That was a propaganda bit from the Russians. So, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and also this, I think that the Germans shouldn't wait and that they should start sending their Leopard 2s. If the British are sending Challenger 2s, which are, from what I know, and let me check this real quick, Leopard 2, and let's see the numbers that we get that are public. There's been 3,600 Leopard 2s built throughout history. There's only been about 450 Challenger 2s. And the fact that the British are willing to send 10 of those and the Germans aren't willing to send a single Leopard of their own is very telling, considering the amount of these that have been produced altogether. And I'm sure that a lot of those are inside of warehouses and storerooms right now, just gathering dust and not doing anything. That they could easily refit, make sure they're operational, and then send to Ukraine for them to use instead, without really incurring any cost. So I hope that does address the poll fairly well with a little bit of additional information, some very quick information. And so with that, do we have another poll?
That was our last poll for now. So with that being said, we're on to our super chat questions. And up first, we have a $20 donation from Psyops, who says, what does Mr. Corgi think of Ukraine? Answer a fun chat question, and Texas stinks.
And Mr. Corgi thinks Ukraine is a pretty neat country. I've shown him a Ukrainian flag before. He seemed to like it. Usually he just licks things that are technology, like watches, phones. For some reason, that's a recurring thing in dogs, for them to lick anything that's technological. I don't know why. Because every single pet we've ever had, whether it was a German Shepherd, a Husky, or a Corgi, whenever like you wear a watch or something, they always like to like lick the watch. I don't understand it. I don't really know how to explain that and how that works, but it seems as though he liked it. And I think he's all in all a Ukraine war supporter. Supporting Ukraine specifically. And so with that, I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And thank you so much for the support, Psyops, and helping this channel to keep on running. Y'all are the only thing that supports us and keeps this thing running. And so without y'all, it's physically not possible. So with that, let's get to a live chat.
Right. And the live chat question goes to, let's see here, Solar Eclipse, who says the Iraqis are using Abrams tanks in fight with the ISIS. Why can't the United States send Ukraine the basic Abrams tanks for them to use?
That's a good question. We have sent basic Abrams to countries like Iraq, and we've definitely exported thousands of Abrams to other countries as well, like the Australians. So that's why it's not really making a lot of sense to me that we can't send them to Ukraine. Because if I had to say at face value, the Iraqis, if anyone had the infrastructure, Ukraine versus Iraq would probably be the least likely to have the infrastructure capable of supporting an Abrams. The Ukrainians would, because they already operate T-80s, which use jet turbine engines, and the Abrams use the exact same thing. So to be honest with you, I have no idea why they're not sending Abrams, and I think we could. I think we could easily send M1A1 Abrams. We just retired all of the Abrams from the U.S. Marine Corps, so there's plenty of M1A1s to go around. We know that. But for some reason, we're being hesitant about it, and we're saying we're not. Take that with a grain of salt, though, because, and real quick, because this is why there's been a little bit of a disconnect here in between me saying the Bradleys are in Ukraine and a lot of official statements. I was talking about the AGM-88 HARM, or anti-radiation missiles in general, being a great thing to support Ukraine with, and the United States, up and down for months on end, had said that they were not sending anti-radiation missiles to Ukraine, and they wouldn't, and there were none there. And the entire time they were saying that, anti-radiation missiles had been given to the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians were using them. So that's why there's a little bit of a disconnect here. Oh my lord! Because the video footage... and thank you so much for that. We'll get to that in a second. But the video footage shows that they were being transported by train to Ukraine, but the official statement is they haven't made it into Ukraine. And we've seen things like that before, and the official statements were misleading intentionally, so that way people wouldn't know whether they were there or not before they were ready to announce it. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, as to why I'm saying that the Bradleys are there and they're not, and also... It's still with that in mind, it doesn't make any sense to me that they haven't sent older variants of the Abrams to Ukraine, because it seems like a logical thing to do to me. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope we addressed that question fairly well. And with that, I think we are on to the last one, if I'm correct. And who is it, Matthew?
So we're actually on to our second one, and this one goes to Jaroslav, who put in that $80 donation. It was 100 Canadian. But Jaroslav, thank you very much for that support. That is very generous of you, and sadly, no comment to address, but we do appreciate it. Like the Enforcer said, it keeps us running. So, Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Yaroslav, because you're helping this channel to keep on running. It helps us to keep the lights on in the background, and of course, it means a lot to us because without that support, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing going. You know, if like, like I sit there and say that, and we really do mean it because there is no other way that this channel supports itself. We've turned off all the ads. You know, it's an ad-free deal, unless we get content ID'd after the stream goes up, then someone else is running the ads and we're making nothing off of it. And that's why we mute all the music, so that way we don't get content ID'd, so that way there's never an ad running on a stream. But that doesn't always work out every time. So the only way that we actually support this channel is through y'all's support here in the Super Chats. And I gotta thank you so much, Yaroslav, for supporting us, because that kind of support helps this channel to keep on running. And without viewers like you who send in that kind of support, this wouldn't be possible for us to keep running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. You didn't throw in a comment, but we still appreciate the support greatly. And with that, we are on to the last one, I think.
And the last one goes to North Sea USA, who puts in a $10 donation and says LSA forever.
And thank you so much for the support, and LSA forever. And thank you so much once again for being a Lee Spring Army soldier. Lee Spring Army service is for life. If y'all don't know, as soon as you subscribe to this channel, you are permanently a Lee Spring Army member. Even if this channel
is the mob?
Yeah, even if this Lee Spring Army channel disappears in the future, the Enforcer channel, the Lee Spring Army will still live on through its community. And I think that's really cool, actually, that the Lee Spring Army will always be around in memory, even if years down the future, everything comes to an end. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And of course, Lee Spring Army forever. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little question segment, and we're going to be moving into our Frontline news. And this was taken many months ago, but this was from a foreign legion of American volunteers that use, from what it seems, an in-law to destroy a BMP.
That's a BMP.
It's right there. It's right there.
To left. Go away. Go away. Go away. Back plus.
And you see the BMP out there? Like, I can't really tell where it is, actually, but here's the clip.
Did it hit? Yeah! Ah! Fucking bitches! Bitches!
He went mental!
It's still there! It's still there!
Oh, wait a minute! It's a BMP-2M! They're continuing to fire at it. I'm just sitting here soaking in like the raw emotions they had after they hit that thing. Let's just watch that one more time because that was hilarious.
It hit! Yeah! Ah! Fucking bitches! Bitches!
And this man lost it. He just lost all composure. He just started yelling that word. We don't make it a thing to cuss on stream, so I can't repeat it, but it's hilarious to hear him screaming that just over and over. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And you can see right there that these foreign volunteers, most of them American. It looks like this guy was actually Canadian over here to the right. You can't see him on screen, but he had a Canadian flag on. It looks like they were able to take out a BMP-2M. And the BMP-2M is one of the larger numbers of APCs that they have that I guess you could call somewhat modern. It has a Taka anti-tank guided missiles mounted to the side of the turret, which you can see right here. You can see those, I believe they are Taka missiles. I'll have to go back and make sure, but it also has an infrared sight built into the turret, which is a little bit of an improvement based off of older iterations of the BMP-2, which do not. And it's just really interesting to see they got one. So with that, that's the end of that clip. Once again, really cool to see. And while it may have been from months ago, we had never seen it, and I just had to show it to y'all. Also, by the way, the channel that uploaded this is called SipDiv. You can find them on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to him, because the guy is over there actually in the war. With that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on into the next one, out of the Kharkiv area and over in the northern front. And believe it or not, nothing has happened in the northeastern area at all. The only video clip that we've gotten that we say is in the northeastern front was in the area of Kreminna, where we saw the Atom unit hitting Russians in that area. Oh, we're going to have to mute that. We see some Russians inside their trenches. We see one guy getting up and running. He's starting to run away. Some of the rest of them are just sitting there. We can now see him ducking down in the dugout. Oh, bled, even if I run down trench other way, he will not drop bomblet on me. Also, they're dropping a bomblet on... Oh!
Oh. Oh.
Now he's up and running.
He's in shock.
He's now trying to find a dugout. It looks like he got into one. And now he's up and he's running again. See him looking up and around. It looks like he's trying to find the drone.
They said, look, it's up in the sky.
Look
like, no joke. Oh, man.
There goes another one.
Oh, that one's a little off target.
That one looks like it may have been a dud, actually. It didn't explode. They're running around in circles. They're literally running in circles. They're now firing up at the drone. The drone's dropping another bomblet. They're now running around.
Did that guy just stop and put his hands on his head and like panic for a minute looking at it?
Yeah, I think he did. He went, ee! So another bomblet dropped. This guy is now running. He's now found a foxhole. This guy's crawling. And that's the end of the clip. And there wasn't really any actual theme to anything going on or like a general idea. It was just raw chaos after they dropped the first bomblet. So with that, it's good to know the Russians have been put in a state of chaos. And if we look at this area on Deep State UA and refresh over the past 24 hours, once again, you'll notice no movements being made. I don't know if the Ukrainians have put the Kreminna offensive on hold. It appeared to have been a offensive action they were going to be taking about a week ago, and it appears that the front line is now stopped entirely. So they may have paused this offensive action as far as we know. With that, we're going to be moving on out of the Kreminna area and finally on into Bakhmut, and specifically Soledar starting off. Now, one thing that we have heard, and one thing that most people are still pretty adamant on... Wait a minute, hang on. Let me take a look at this again. Alright, that's interesting. It just changed. Did you see that, Matthew?
No, I actually didn't.
For a second there, it actually showed that the Russians controlled a little bit more of this, and then I backed it up to the 11th, to the 10th, and now up to the 12th, and it's showing something a little bit different. But moving on from that, from what we've been able to understand, here is the rundown of what's going on in Soledar right now. And this rundown may not be accurate at this moment. Things may have changed from when I was able to make these assumptions to now. And not only that, there is a fog of war. We don't really get the exact information and details of everything going on the front lines at all times in perfect form. So this may still be slightly inaccurate, but here's our rundown of it. So take this with a grain of salt. The Ukrainians, according to the last 24-hour report, have withdrawn from the town of Soledar and left it to the Wagner unit. At that moment, it was said that the Wagner unit was moving into Soledar. Oh my lord! Thank you so much. Yeah. But anyways, it was said that the Wagner unit was moving in from both the left and right flanks, or I guess you could say the north and south flank of Soledar, to close in and finally take the city now that it had been abandoned by Ukrainian forces. However, 48 hours have passed from that moment, because that didn't just occur yesterday. That was also occurring, I believe, in 48 hours ago, in the day before yesterday's news segment, and they haven't moved in. And there's a couple of things I'm thinking, and we're gonna think tank here. And if the live chat can join in on this and give me some ideas, I would love to hear them, because here are a couple of the suggestions and ideas I have as to why this hasn't happened. One, the freezing cold weather. The freezing cold weather and the lack of winter gear that we see in most Russian forces due to them freezing on the front lines may be leading a lot of their units to be suffering attrition just from the weather alone, and they're ending up either freezing to death or suffering severe frostbite where they have to be moved off the line, and so the frontline units are not moving because they are suffering so badly from the weather inclements alone. The other suggestion that I have, that I'm thinking about, is that the Russians are not moving into the town because there is some kind of Ukrainian force there, or they're taking such heavy artillery bombardment and resistance from the Ukrainians, although they've withdrawn, they're being pinned down and they're not really able to move all too much. The final idea that I have, and this one is probably the most far-fetched in my opinion, is that the Russians have halted the offensive. That is something that I don't really believe, because of course over the past 24 hours and past 48 hours as a whole, they have moved. But they haven't moved into Soledar, so I'm not really understanding what's going on with this at all. And if y'all have any ideas, share them with us, because I'm trying to see. 907 Pike Alaska said it was a trap. Wagner is already dead. I don't know, because we still see some Wagner units on the field, and we saw some getting blown away today. And well, I'm actually about to show y'all that. Let's see. Someone said another YouTuber believes that a Ukrainian unit did not make it out as an encircled, but we've never been able to confirm that the town has been encircled in the first place. It doesn't appear that it has been, and according to Deep State UA, and I believe that YouTuber also uses this map, they're also not showing that the town has been encircled. There is still a route of retreat for forces that are still inside of the village. Let's see. Look at its open field. Not this area. The area that we're talking about here that the Russians have not moved into is actually an urban area. These little buildings are actually large apartment blocks. Well, Khrushchevkas, as they're called. These are open fields, and they are moving through those. That is true. Let's see. The Russians have no supply line. Duncan VR said that. That is probably also the case, and the winter weather is probably inflicting a massive strain on their supply line, just trying to get out the, I guess you could say the 200s and 300s, to try and bring in new replacements as well, considering what we're seeing in terms of just attrition from the weather. That may also be the case. I just don't really know. Also, someone said, click forward one more time. We've clicked forward as far as we can. This is the most recent map we have gotten from Soledar. Let's see, what else? Maybe expecting a Ukrainian counterattack? Highly, in my opinion, that may be somewhat likely, but at the same time, to be the devil's advocate here, because this is what I do even with my own suggestions, it may be that there is, because they do have the offensive right now, they are on the move forward, and the Ukrainians are most likely having to react in a defensive situation to what the Russians are doing right now. So maybe they are waiting for a counterattack, but that wouldn't be that great, because if they actually took Soledar, they would have a defensive anchor to use against a Ukrainian counterattack. So, you know, it makes sense in a way. Maybe they are, but maybe they aren't. I don't know. But moving on from that, that's what we have as a situation in Soledar right now. That's what the front line is appearing to look like, and we'll keep an eye on that over the next few coming days, and we'll try and clear the story up as much as we can as we get more information. This is all the information we have right now, and I'm throwing out every single idea that I have that could logically contribute to why the Wagner unit has not taken Soledar yet, and why Soledar is technically still in Ukrainian hands. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into the videos.
I see that it looks like the 46th Air Mobile Brigade said on Telegram that the situation is critical in Soledar, and it looks like it's not getting any better.
Well, yeah, but what's the... Oh, wait a minute, hang on. We're going through some buffering issues right now, so give me just a second. We're going through some lag. Let me make sure. It doesn't look like we're going through lag on OBS.
I don't think we're lagging.
It says it on the YouTube studio that we are. That's weird. We're just going to keep on going like it's not, but what's the exact details there? Did they just say it was critical, or did they add anything extra?
They just said it's critical, and I would assume that means that they're in bad shape.
I'm sure there's... Well, I don't know. We'll just have to keep on waiting for news, and that's so vague, it doesn't really mean much. You know, that's like saying the situation is great without actually going into detail. You know,
I mean, it's like saying the situation is good or bad, and they're saying the situation is bad.
Well, yeah, but you still got to see what I'm saying. If they're saying it's if it's bad, how bad is it? What's going on up there? What are the Russians really doing according to the Ukrainians that's making the situation bad? That's what's not really being cleared up, because that would be like saying, that's like the Russians saying the situation is great and then they don't add anything to it. How is it great? Because from our position, it looks terrible for the Russians, and it does not look good for the Ukrainians of Soledar right now. but it doesn't look critical either. They are forming new defensive positions. The Russians aren't really blowing through anything right now, rather than an open field every 2 days or so. So I would have to get a little bit more info than that to try and see what's really going on. But anyways, let's get into the video clips where we can see some Russian forces in the Bakhmut area spotted by Ukrainian recon. See them looking down on the Russians here. See them looking down there, and that's the end of the clip. But we could see some Russians on the move somewhere in this tree line. With that, we're going to be moving on. But before we do, this is becoming something interesting enough. So where did you see that, Matthew?
Let's see. The source is a quote from Telegram from the 46th Air Mobile Brigade.
And where did you find that? Like, where did you find it on Telegram, or did you find it somewhere else?
It's reported on various ones according to Google, but the one I'm looking at is CNN.
Well, wait a minute, we're going to start taking CNN's word. Like, they said the situation has been critical in Ukraine for 11 months, and they're on.
But no, that's the brigade saying that. That's a quote.
I don't know. I mean, they take things out of context a lot, along with Fox. So
well, no, you can't take a quote out of context, so it's a quote.
I don't know. We'll keep looking at that, but considering that's coming from CNN and how much they just butcher wordage over here with direct quotes and misunderstand them, I don't know. So with that, we're going to be moving on into the next bit of news in Soledar, where we also saw the Wagner getting bombleted again. And we're also going to have to mute this because of the copyrighted music. You see them dropping a bomblet into the foxhole. Foxhole exploding. Another one, this time an F1 grenade. Once again fell right into the dugout, exploded. A third one. That one appeared to have bounced off. Well, actually, it still went into the dugout somehow. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And now, because I can see that everything is blowing up and everyone's trying to figure out what's going on in Soledar, we're going to try and do it live. Instead of me trying to compile the news before the stream, we're going to go around and try and find all the news we can, but not from mainstream news, because I don't really put a lot of credibility into any mainstream news. So, Soledar news. Let's see what we got. So let's see. All mainstream news. See here, Ukraine holds out, battle Soledar. So I'm going to pull this up on a second screen real quick, and we're going to try and get a live view, or as best we can, a live view of what's going on there. So let me pull up Reddit, and let me try and see if there's anything there. No, we don't want that. We want this. Pull that up there, and we'll go to Soledar. And let's see if we have any posts. See here. So one person said that the Russians didn't last. Sometime Ukraine lost their foothold in Bakhmut. That was 6 days ago. Let's see. Sort by past 24 hours. So we're going to look at the past 24 hours. Wagner infantry being destroyed by artillery. Soledar holds. The 46th is starting counterattacks. That was reported on the Ukraine subreddit. Ukrainian military says strike kills over 100 Russian soldiers in Soledar after Ukrainian forces launched a missile at a grouping of troops. Wagner report from Soledar walking around the town showing captured UAV. Say what?
I don't mean to interrupt you real quick, but it looks like Deep State has updated their map, and it's showing that Soledar has fallen according to the audience.
So let me refresh that real quick. And it looks like that is what we actually just saw a second ago. And I said, did you see it, Matt? It looks like they've taken most of it. And according to Deep State UA, they have taken Soledar in its entirety. This area over here to the eastern side is the area that is the last bits of residential areas in between Soledar and Bladotny. So we can see that it is confirmed now that the Russians have in fact taken Soledar, and the information that we were getting a little bit a while ago needs to be updated because it looks like they just updated the map literally in the middle of our stream. So with that, we're now going to... I don't
know if that means that the Ukrainians have retreated, or have they been taken prisoner or something else.
Well, it appears that we haven't seen anything suggesting that anyone's been taken prisoner, because I'm seeing reports of everything, including Russian clips, and there's no Russian clips showing that there have been prisoners taken, and we saw that before when the Azovstal fell. We saw the Russians showed all of the prisoners being taken, and the Ukrainians also filmed it as well, and we're not seeing that from Soledar. So it appears that there was no garrison of troops inside of Soledar to have surrendered, so either the Wagner group was operating incredibly slowly in taking this town to the point that they just took it literally about 10 minutes ago, most likely, or those forces withdrew in the middle of them pushing forward. So with that, now we have a little bit... Go ahead.
I see some folks saying that Starsky said that they withdrew, and that'd be the best case scenario, because it'd be a really sketchy situation if they got trapped somewhere in there and they're trying to like hold out for basically just their unit.
It would be, and luckily it looks like that hasn't been the case. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into the next bit of location, Soledar news, or, well, this is no longer true. It appeared so a little while ago, but it does appear that the Ukrainian forces have been pushed out of Soledar and have actually lost the town now. So here's a clip of the Wagner unit saying on their telegraph a while ago that the declaration of victory had actually been premature and they hadn't taken the town, but now this is dated because they actually have taken the town over the past 10 minutes. So that just happened live on stream. The Russians just took Soledar in its entirety, a town that had about 10,000 people living in it before the war began. So with that, that's the end of that clip. And we're about to start talking about the situation in the Soledar area and explaining what will most likely happen now that we know that they have taken Soledar. And so moving on into the next clip, we also saw the Ukrainians once again hitting the Wagner fighters again today. And wait a minute. Hang on. I think that's a... You know, that was a different angle right here of the last video we watched, so that's actually a repeat and threw me off. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on into the next one from Soledar, where we can see an MT Rapira firing. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, but once again, the Rapira right here with its 100mm anti-tank gun is most likely operating as some kind of a infantry support role. But once again, it appears that the situation in Soledar is not improving right now, and the Ukrainians have lost the town, but we'll go into what that means here in a second. Moving on to our last clip of news, we've also seen that a Panzerhaubitze 2000, or maybe even an entire Panzerhaubitze 2000 battery, has been brought into the Soledar area to help support the frontline troops. And so, here's the clip. Also, notice that the tracks are so new on this Panzerhaubitze that they're still shining. Huh. Pretty interesting to note. We now see it backing up off the field. Kind of quickly, actually. That thing can move quickly in reverse. We now see it sitting in the tree line. See them operating on a computer inside of the Panzerhaubitze. We can see the shells for the gun right there. Now see them firing again. Man, that thing is just impressive to see firing. See firing again. You see the rate of fire that a Panzerhaubitze can also get due to its autoloader. It can get a pretty high speed of fire, well, high rate of fire or a high speed of fire, whichever way you want to say it. We can see the inside of the turret right here as the Panzerhaubitze is operating. And we can see that all the crew has to do again is load the powder charge, which is fairly simple. We see outside the tank, well, outside the SPG again, it operating, rotating the turret, and getting ready to move. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but giving you another good idea of what the Panzerhaubitze looks like in operation in the Soledar area. And so, real quick, while I know that we do not use my map anymore to account for what's going on the front lines, we will adjust it so that way it is accurate. So now the Russians are about right there. They've also moved about right there. And let me move this over here. I hate that. I hate how it keeps on doing that. So we're going to have to try and do it from all the way out here. And then about right there. And that's where they've moved. So this is the current situation right now. We'll go back to Deep State UA and let's talk about what is most likely going to be happening over the next coming days. Based off of how the Russians have been moving over the past... And let me make sure this is correct. So we've had 2 updates today, and of course this one just happened about 20 minutes ago. And it appears that the Russians are moving out in this direction, directly towards Krasnoor. It appears that they're not going to try and move towards Blahodotny, or Blahodotny, which is probably the correct way to pronounce that, because it looks like there is some kind of a hill or a ridgeline behind it that the Ukrainians can most likely fire down on. They've probably been doing that so far. But they are moving downwards, south, towards Krasnoor directly. Now that they've taken Soledar, the Ukrainians' defensive line is, of course, not going to be in Soledar anymore. It's going to be in Blahodotny and also Krasnoor, meaning that the Russians are going to have to be pushing directly onto those lines. Their final goal is to take the highway. The highways, the 2 roads in yellow here, are the supply lines of the Ukrainian forces. And so... today, the Ukrainians finally lost the first line of defense in the northern flank, and they've now moved on to the second one. If they lose the second one, they will lose their first supply line out of the 2. If the Russians are somehow also able to move up the ridge in the Kloshkivka area towards Chasiv Yar, the Ukrainians will lose the second major supply line and will most likely be in a critical situation where they're going to be losing the town and forced to withdraw. Right now, it seems that the southern flank, looking over the past several days, has not really changed much. From the 9th of January all the way up until today, there has been no frontline movements whatsoever here, and so it appears that the Russians moving into Chasiv Yar will be somewhat unlikely. And if we had to give a positive outlook on the Russians where they were going to be making ground, I would assume that it would take them probably another 3 weeks to a month to take Chasiv Yar. However, Krasnoor is going to be fought over directly over these next few coming days, and the battle for Krasnoor on the northern flank will begin. This is something that will be interesting to see, and if we look at the map to try and get as best a lay of the land as possible, I would assume right now the Russians are going to be moving through these open fields and this tree line. They're going to be moving a bulk of their infantry forces through this grassy area around the lakes and into the tree lines here just north of Krasnoor. This will give them a couple of lanes of fire. One will be going into the western side of Krasnoor on the other side of the railroad tracks, and this will also allow them to try and continue to move their troops somewhat more concealed than normal, although most of the leaves on the trees are gone, so it's not the greatest concealment as it was in the summer, but they'll be trying to move them down this tree line and on into the eastern side of Krasnoor to engage Ukrainian forces here. Most likely, we will see that they'll try and continue straight down the railroad tracks and try and split Krasnoor into 2. This will start to become a little bit more difficult once they reach the halfway point in Krasnoor, considering that there is a lot of open ground in between this tree line and the next one, which means that they'll probably be coming under a lot of artillery barrage. If that is the case, they'll just have to sit here and wait it out until they can fight through the town, take a couple of these roads, and then move into this tree line, and finally get towards Paraskovkivka, which is, I guess you could say, kind of a suburb or an extension of Krasnoor that, when you zoom out, it's included as a part of Krasnoor, but it is somewhat its own village. If they're able to do that, they'll most likely force the Ukrainian forces on the eastern side of the town to retreat across the railroad tracks, and then the battle will begin from there, and they'll also try and push them out further on. But if they're able to dominate the entire eastern side of Krasnoor all the way down to the highway, they will have cut off the supply line practically in its completion. There will be no more supplies coming from that area, and the Ukrainians will have to rely on the one supply line around the Chasiv Yar area, the T-0504, to get the rest of the supplies into Bakhmut. So even if they do take Krasnohora and the E40, it's not going to be a battle-ending situation. And you have to remember that the Battle of Soledar is only an extenuation of the Battle of Bakhmut. So it's not like the Battle of Soledar was some kind of major war-changing battle. And you also have to remember that even if they do take Bakhmut, which I still consider a highly unlikelihood, the population of the town of Bakhmut is not the biggest town that they've taken. So let me show you all this again. Before the war, the population of Bakhmut was 73,212. The population of Severodonetsk was around 110,000. The population of Lysychansk was around 100,000. The population of Kherson was around 500,000. Well, actually, I believe it was more like 250,000. Let me check that real quick. Let's see, Kherson. 289,000. So about 300,000. And they lost that city. They have taken Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, and we see that the capture of both of those towns did not really change the strategic situation. And so in context, compared to stuff the Russians still hold, Bakhmut is not going to be that massive of a strategic gain if they are able to take the town, especially considering the amount of casualties that they've taken so far. Even if they took this tomorrow, it wouldn't have been worth the thousands of dead and the tens of thousands wounded. Also, the over 100 tanks destroyed or more, and the hundreds of armored personnel carriers that have been destroyed to take this town, it wouldn't end up being worth it. It's just entirely pointless. But still, that's the current situation we're looking at in the Soledar area, and it's unfortunate to hear that the Ukrainians did lose the town, and it appears that they've finally been pushed out of it after months of heavy fighting for the small village. With that, we're now going to be moving on from the northern flank and on into the center of the front line, where we saw in the Bakhmut area some pictures of before the war and after, showing how heavily the Russians have been bombarding this area over the past few months to try and take the town. The post was deleted, so unfortunately I can't show that to y'all. We're going to be moving on into the next clip from Bakhmut, where we saw some footage from inside of Bakhmut today.
Yes.
When you hear a gunfight going on, when you see them inside of the rubble. We see a soldier over there fiddling with something. We don't really know what it is. You see here that he's trying to do something. We can't really tell what it is. We can see his friend over there once again on screen. When you see something explode in front of them, the smoke drifting over to their left. Here's something going on off camera. We see him pulling out something. I can't really tell what it is. And it appears, someone just said it sounds like he got hit. It appears that he hasn't been hit because he's still behaving perfectly fine, but we'll see here in a second. We can see this soldier now running. The camera is somewhat obscured by the rifle strap. Or the sling, better way to say it. You hear some gunfire. We now see he's stopped. It looks like he's facing a wall, and he's near another soldier, and the video ends. We couldn't really tell what was going on in this clip, but we could hear that the firefight was continuing, and it seems as though the Ukrainians in this clip are still holding the ground of these houses wherever they were, and we're moving from one direction to the other. With that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip from Bakhmut, where we can see that Russia Today made a film about Bakhmut. We don't see this much. In fact, we don't see this at all. But this was pretty interesting. So with that, here's the clip. And I don't even care this time if this is copyrighted or not. We're playing it because this just adds to the hilarity of it. And also, I like how the start, Matthew, is a quarter-mile run through the wide open to an apartment building. It's like, isn't that like the worst thing to do?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Now see, they finally made it to the building. And then the guy here, he talks about shelling, but we haven't heard a single artillery shell explode in the entire clip. It's perfectly dead silent. He says there was shelling about 100 meters away. We didn't hear it. Now they're showing one.
Ребят, по улице заходить не очень безопасно. Можно, но проще спуститься в эту дырку.
See them all sitting in the building. You finally hear something explode.
За ваш мир, мы здесь.
What a loaded line.
Мама меня к такому не готовила. Спасибо вам, ребят.
Опыта, прямо сейчас идут штурмовые действия.
Все будет хорошо. Победа будет за нами. Враги играют. Слава России! Потому что идут прострелы. Да, прострелы. Прикроем, да. С той стороны работает снайпер, ледочник. Поэтому аккуратно мы прикроем, вы перебежите. Да, любое передвижение, сначала подавление огнем, чтобы вы спокойно могли пройти. Сопроводи, пожалуйста, наших друзей. Нет, иди сюда. Прикрытие или сопроводить? Сопроводи друзей наших вниз. Покажи дорогу. Вот за ним. Вот так. Начнете движение, скажите, прикроем.
And the action music, they're trying to make this so intense. And any normal Ukrainian firefight video at this point would have just been a whole lot more intense in the first 10 seconds. There's been really no firefight or anything in this clip, but they're trying to make it seem like this is just a harrowing situation. There's nothing even going on. They're just walking around.
Давай, пошли. Погнали. Пошли. Сюда, Андрей. Вон, давай.
When you hear one gunshot in the distance, now see them climbing down a ladder. The music's getting so loud that you can't hear anything else. Now we're moving up to the side of the building.
Давай, спускайся, братан. Я прям почувствовал, как мимо меня пролетело.
How come we didn't hear it then? He just said, I felt something fly right past me. We've heard bullets whiz past the camera before. You know, you can hear them. How in the hell did we not hear it if it was just flying right past them? Nothing. We got nothing.
If only the Russians could fight like they act.
And, well, they didn't even act. Did you hear that guy? He was like, take cover in here. It's safe here. Like, that's not even acting, man. Like, but also another thing, who in the hell is carrying around a 4K camera? You know, I've never even seen this on the Ukrainian side.
They got a whole camera crew behind them.
Yeah, they got a whole Russia Today camera crew here on the front line making this film. This isn't even the front line. This is probably in Mariupol, for all we know. But with that's the end of the clip, and we're now going to be moving on into the next one, further down the line in Opitne, where we saw some Russians being targeted by artillery again.
Горіти вам в пеклі, суки. Привіт,
Джага-джага.
45-ї окремої артилерійської бригади. Джага-джага!
Hey, it's that guy again! Also, apparently he's watching a nature documentary at the front line.
What the hell?
Ось таке сьогодні в Солідарі. Зараз зрозумієте. Звичайно, у наших відео я кажу очами птахів мадяра.
He loves that car antenna, man. Like, I respect it.
В Солідарі?
Was a squid like a training aid or something? He's like, see this, and then he's like using the car antenna.
I don't know, maybe.
Я скажу, розплющивши очі розплющивши,
О,
перше в
fast runner.
таку купу лайна бігаючого, тарганячого, що аж дискусія виникла.
Now see him
Кому
moving
віддати
up again.
перевагу в першочерговому проходженні детокс-програми. Та хробачня полізла звідусіль.
Now see them sitting on a railroad
Все, як
track.
ми любимо. Толпами.
And it appears that the one guy's got like a cart. Like there's some kind of 18th century merchants going from village to village selling wares and fine goods.
Штурмовиків, а по сумісництву мародерів. Таким собі хоральчиком заходить штурмова група хробаків-інтервентів у кількості охренівадцять одиниць. Розбиваються на
Still
групи
moving around.
по 4-5.
And they're moving quite slowly, those guys were.
Помешкання, що поновіше, побагаче. Чиста саранча. Раз, два, три, чотири, п'ять, шість, сім. Зараз поясню вам, чого
See them still moving through. We can now see them making the fatal mistake of grouping up in one spot.
11 січня в Солідарі. Протягом
So there's about 5 guys over there on the side of that wall, and here comes the 6th one.
І дрони камікадзе Мольфар, і коригування артилерії. Зараз ви побачите, як грозний штурмовий загін перетворюється, тече і перетворюється в банальних бігущих гівнюків в момент, коли їх роль з мисливців міняється на роль цілей, коли по ним починається конкретне полювання. Таким чином, очами виявлено і зафіксовано, що в даній будівлі розмістилось мінімум 7 робоків-інтервентів, а також в ряді інших будівель розміщено по декілька тих представників. Не хотілося би лупити все підряд, то прийнято рішення сумісно з артилеристами 45-ї окремої артилерійської бригади трохи цокодло розворушити. Розпочинається відповідний вплив.
See him looking at the houses. We're assuming Russians are inside of these. The artillery hit.
Декілька пострілів.
Ага-джага.
Poof. Well, you see a lot of Russians on the move now. They're all taking a little path
Різних хат.
and moving into this destroyed building.
Ненормальній кількості. Не знаю, видно вам, не видно. Той мурашник. Видно, очевидно. По 7, по 8, по 10.
A lot of them are in this building.
Нове собі переховатися. Не розуміють, що ми за ними спостерігаємо. Саранча продовжує розбігатися хто куди. А ну давай. Просинаються і...
Now see them running across the street to the left side of the screen. We can also see them pointing them out with the antenna.
Побігли. Наступна партія. 5, 6, 7. Побігли.
We're going to have to skip forward real quick because this video is 14 minutes long and we have a decent amount of news to get to still. So we're going to be moving up to the next time they get hit, which is right here. Bada boom, baby!
Baba boy.
Baba boy. And there they go again. He's getting into it, man. He's getting into it. We see them moving in once more. You see them stay all in a group. This guy is into this stuff. I think he needs to do this as a job. He is.
Оце я розумію.
But we're going to have to end the clip right here. But as you can tell, Jugga Jugga had a fun time in Bakhmut today, getting to go poof and Jugga Jugga on every single guy that he saw. And Cat Nico says this is the Igor guy.
He sounds familiar.
He sounds familiar, and there's an interesting story behind that, but I won't say that on stream right now. We'll give that a little before I say that. But with that, we're going to be moving on to our last clip of news from the center, where we saw some Ukrainian soldiers in Bakhmut again. See them all here in the tree line. Kind of grouped up, which is a little concerning, but they're in a thicket, so hopefully the drone can't see them.
Передайте нашим, что мы ебашим.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, the Ukrainian forces in the Bakhmut area. We don't really know where that was in particular. It could have been in any of three of those fronts, but it was located at Bakhmut. Moving on to the southern front, the only clip here, we saw some Russians get taken out here as well. And, you know, usual rave music. When you see the Russians wandering around, literally crawling on the ground.
Just walk. It's like literally 5 feet.
And now they're dropping the bomblet on them. And they blew up right in front of the entrance. You see it right there.
See, crawling didn't help that time.
Yeah, it didn't help. They're recruiting people that don't even know how to walk. And we now see another bomblet hit the same warehouse. It appears to be on the far side of town. We now see another one exploding. Actually, that appears to be a different house. But artillery is landing around it and exploding. And we don't know how many Russians are in that building to confirm whether anyone's being taken out or not. But with that, that's the end of this clip. And once again, good to see that the Ukrainians are hitting the Russians on every single part of the line. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the southern front area and into some of our last bits of news, because the southern front has nothing at all. But in Donetsk, we saw two things happen. The first one was that the 36th Marine Brigade, which once was fighting in the Kherson area, was hitting the Russians with an 82mm mortar. We're going to have to mute that. And I know, and I saw someone say that another YouTuber plays copyrighted music without a problem. I get a problem from YouTube. I can't control that. I wish I could. I can't. But we can see here the drone looking into the distance. And we can see some bright little lights. And those are Russian soldiers, and we can now see the artillery landing around them. The first shot was a little off. The second shot was dead on to the right side of the group. We now see the other three just sitting there. And now see another round. The third round landed a little high. We now see them changing the
Black
color.
hot.
Yeah, they're changing the color that the infrared's in. I know they changed it back because they like this one better.
I think I like the first color better.
Yeah, I kind of like the first one better. And now he's changing it again. This guy just likes changing the options a lot. He's like, look how many options I got. He's like showing us like it's like a sales pitch.
It's like the new toy.
Hey guys, look, I got the new toy. Look, I can see them from 5 miles away. Look at this.
There he goes again.
He's like, look, we can see them in yellow. You see them still hanging out in that part of the tree line. Another shell hit. That one appeared to have exploded in the trees.
It was like the heat signatures disappeared.
No, we can still see them down there. They're still in the same little spots. None of them have moved. Interestingly enough. We see another shell landing. This one is a little low. Had to make sure that this didn't repeat. And we see another shell land right on the right side of the group again. And that's the end of the clip. If we could get anything from it, considering none of them are moving, all of them may be taking a nap, but one thing we can tell for certain is that the 2 artillery shells that landed on the right side of that group definitely took out those 2 guys, but the other 3, if they were in foxholes, may have gotten out of that unscathed and maybe with minor injuries. With that, that's the end of that clip, and once again, good to see that the 36th Marine Brigade is slamming the Russians in that area of the Donetsk front. Moving on down to Marinka, and one of our last clips, we saw the Ukrainians in Marinka destroying a couple of Rossiyski tanks. And so here's the clip. And you see the little drone flying around. We can see a tank right down there. You see another one right there, and we can see that one right there. And we can see these two connected to each other, and the Russians running away. And we can see this one flying in, and we can see it hit. And we can see it right there. And we can see it's on fire. Blit. We can see another one coming in, and another one. And we see that one hit, and we can see this one
It said land now, like the drone was like, hit it, hit it.
Land now, dang it! And all three of them went up in a ball of flame. Nice. Nice, Igor. Nice. Igor! And that's...
Jaga, jaga.
Boof. And bada boom. Or bada boy. Or whatever it is. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And once again, 3 Russian tanks destroyed. Credit to the 79th Air Assault Brigade, who's in Marinka right now. With that, we're now moving on from that last bit of news. There hasn't been any frontline news to report from the southern front or the Kherson area, and so now it's time for us to move to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 324 of the war in Ukraine. And so without further ado, here is the speech. And also let me get the subtitles in the right spot, and here we go.
Шановні українці, провів сьогодні чергове засідання Ставки. Засідання, яке за своїм характером відповідало ситуації на передовій, на найбільш принципових напрямках. Звичайно, питання номер 1 – це Соледар, це Бахмут, це боротьба загалом за Донецький напрямок. Детально розібрали, які рішення потрібні, які підкріплення потрібні, які кроки мають бути зроблені командувачами вже найближчими днями. Також обговорили ситуацію з постачанням зброї та боєприпасів у війська, відповідно взаємодію з нашими партнерами. Говорив сьогодні про перспективи найближчих тижнів і місяців зі спікером Сейму Латвії, який прибув з візитом у Київ. Про перспективи не тільки оборонні, а й політичні, зокрема про європейську і євроатлантичну інтеграцію України. Я почув впевненість у тому, що обов'язково настане день, коли український прапор буде абсолютно на рівних з усіма прапорами держав-членів Євросоюзу. Латвія нам у цьому допомагатиме. До речі, Латвія – одна з тих країн, чия підтримка для України в перерахунку у відсотках від ВВП одна з найбільших за минулий рік. Думаю, що цьогоріч така тенденція може зберегтися. Продовжую сьогодні і телефонні перемовини з лідерами держав-партнерів, ще 2 європейські країни, чий голос надзвичайно важливий для України – це Кіпр і Люксембург. А також розширюємо географію дипломатичного марафону. Я говорив сьогодні з паном президентом Кенії. Всі ці переговори присвячені питанням безпеки і нашої держави, і наших партнерів. Я вдячний за підтримку української формули миру, за готовність працювати спільно з нами, щоб покінчити з російською агресією якнайшвидше. Дуже важлива ініціатива України – це створення продовольчих хабів в Африці. Наша зовнішня політика має вийти на новий рівень з африканськими партнерами. Там вже відчули, що від українського експорту продовольства прямо залежить безпека різних народів. І ми хочемо закріпити це на рівні конкретних інституцій, конкретних об'єктів, хабів, тобто конкретних гарантій продовольчої стабільності, які постійно працюватимуть і які будуть однією з нових основ відносин України та держав африканського континенту. Відбулося сьогодні відкриття нового напрямку в нашій державній благодійній платформі United 24. Це напрямок відбудови України, тобто це генерація коштів для відновлення, зокрема житла для українців на територіях, які постраждали від російських ударів та окупації. Станом на цей день тільки через United 24 зібрано вже близько $500 мільярда від людей з понад 100 країн для відновлення житла. Це відчутна допомога і місцевим громадам, і державі. Загалом вже завдяки державній фандрейзинговій платформі зібрано вже більше $10 мільярдів. Я дякую всім, хто долучився до зборів United 24. Дякую всім, хто допомагає Україні. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто воює за Україну. А особливо сьогодні відзначу десантників 77-ї окремої аеромобільної бригади, які разом з бійцями 46-ї окремої аеромобільної бригади в Солидарі отримують займані позиції і завдають ворогу відчутних втрат. Я дякую вам, хлопці. Слава Україні!
And with
Love
that,
Ukraine.
That is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that wraps up our day 324 news summary. If you were here for the news alone, I thank you so much for watching, and if y'all did enjoy, make sure to subscribe, because this news runs every single day of the week, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, except for Mondays. We take Mondays off, and when we come back on Tuesdays, we report on the past 48 hours. So while we don't report every day of the week, we do cover every single day of the week. Just on Tuesday, we cover 2 and 1. But with that, thank you all so much once again for watching, and we're about to be moving into the question segment, where we're going to address all the super chats we got, and as many live chats as we can. And so with that, before we get to doing that, let's get to the polls. And what do we got for that, Matthew?
Right. So we have 3 polls to address. And also, by the way, since I really can't type it right now, welcome back, Walter. It's good to see you again. I see you put in this good old line there. It's always good to see the line.
The
But
LSA OG. Well, wait a minute, hang on, not the LSA. The OG Ellison Bosun. Like
yes,
that,
indeed.
That is ingrained in my head now. But anyways, let's get to the polls.
All right. So the very first poll that we have of the 3 says, do you think Russian leadership depends on high-level military commanders, generals, etc.? It looks like 46% said yes, the generals call the shots. 12% said unsure. 43% said no, Putin calls the shots. So on this one, I got to say that overall, I'm sure Putin has the final say on things, but he would not be replacing his military generals as frequently as he does if they didn't play a major role. So I do think they get to take the good bit of the blame for their failures. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say he probably does have a decent amount of input, in what's going on in Ukraine. It's just that whenever he gives his input and it fails, he blames it on a general and has them removed. That's what I'm probably thinking of what we're seeing, because Hitler controlled a lot of what went on for the German military in the Second World War, and whenever there was a failure, it was usually just blamed on the generals, and they were either removed from their positions or rotated to a different one elsewhere in a worse part of the war. So kind of similar there historically, and I think he's probably making most of the calls of where they're going and what they're doing. It's just that when it fails, he blames it on them instead of himself. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, at least in my opinion. And do you have anything to add to that, Matthew?
Nothing else to add to that one, but we do have another poll, and the second one says, what do you think the real situation is on the ground in Soledar? It looks like the most popular choice is 36%, which says Russians are encircling and taking it. 27% say Ukraine is holding their ground, 14% said Ukraine is counterattacking, and 23% said unsure. But a disclaimer real quick, this poll was run before we saw the information come through on Deep State UA's map, so the results might be a little bit different right now. But based on what we've seen, I would say my guess is that Soledar has fallen, and we're not exactly sure where the Ukrainian units are that were fighting there, if they have been evacuated, retreated, or if they're stuck there. We really don't know, but I'm sure we'll learn more tomorrow. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the Russians are encircling and taking Soledar. That was the picture we got yesterday, and based off of all the reports and information we were getting earlier on today, it appeared that the Wagner unit had not even entered the town at all yet, and that's what we started reporting tonight. And then as the night developed, we actually found out that while the stream was running, the Wagner unit had actually moved into the rest of Soledar and taken it. It appears that based off of what we know in the sequence of events that we're seeing now, which is the one we were going with yesterday, until I was looking around and it seemed as though every indication on Earth showed that the Ukrainians were somehow still holding Soledar today. Yesterday, we had already gotten an idea that most Ukrainian forces had withdrawn from Soledar and had started setting up defensive positions at Blohodatne and Krasnoora, and the Wagner unit was just incredibly slow in moving in taking the area that the Ukrainians had evacuated from. It appears that that now was the story, and it hadn't actually changed. It's just that information came out today that was either incredibly optimistic or somewhat misleading, that made me believe, and many people believe, that somehow the Ukrainians were either still holding on to Soledar or something else. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well, but in all truth, because, we're pro-Ukrainian, but we looked at things unbiasedly here, the Russians did take Soledar, and that is a small defeat for the Ukrainian military. They still have another defensive line to count on, so not all is lost here in the northern flank, but it's still going to be a lot more difficult and challenging going on for the Ukrainians, considering that there will be nowhere to fall back to if they want to keep control of the E40 and the supply line running along that highway. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and let's get on into the next one.
And the third and final poll says, if Soledar has fallen, should Ukraine level the town down to the foundations? It looks like 52% said yes, trap Russian forces there and level it. 32% said no, fight and wear them down. And 16% said unsure and undecided. So I'm definitely going to say trap them there and level it because it looks like Soledar has pretty much been ruined at this point, and there's really not much to save. And if there is, it's probably worth the loss to wipe out the forces that are coming in. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it would probably be beneficial. Well, really, it wouldn't be beneficial because imagine the prohibitive cost in munitions to level that town. It wouldn't be something beneficial for the Ukrainians to waste a lot of effort on doing. It would probably just be better for the Ukrainians to continue on what they've normally been doing, which is to single out where the Russian soldiers are specifically within the town and then hit them with precise artillery strikes so that way they can conserve ammunition. Because while the buildings, of course, have been lost, the entire town has been practically destroyed, it would be senseless to go through and just try and carpet bomb the thing with barrages or something else because you're just wasting a lot of artillery and ammo to really gain no additional benefit. And you could just precisely strike them by using a lot less ammunition and really get the same desired result. And so with that, I hope that addresses my opinion on the poll fairly well. But what do y'all think? Because I'm trying to see. Cody Larkart said there may be civilians there also, and there may be. We don't really know if there are any civilians in Soledar.
I'd be shocked.
Well, I wouldn't be that shocked. There's still people in Bakhmut. There's 7,000 people left in Bakhmut right now, which is 10% of their population. So if Soledar went off the same, there would be like 1,000 people still inside of Soledar if 10% of them stayed behind. So that may be the case, that there are people in there, and you might not want to do something like that, like leveling the town, because you could end up killing citizens that never left for one reason or another. But with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well. And let me see if anyone else said anything interesting. Let's see, 500 civilians and wounded there yesterday. So there are 500 civilians in the town, so 5% of the population is still there. So it might not be a good idea to level it because you would probably end up killing a lot of them and not really a lot of Russian forces. Because usually that's how it goes with indiscriminate bombings, is you get more civilians than you do soldiers. So it may not be that good of an idea considering we've now confirmed there are citizens inside of Soledar still. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And let's get on into the next one.
All right, so that was our last poll. So, of course, we are moving on to our super chat questions, and then we'll move on to our live chat questions, and we have quite a few tonight. First up from the super chats, we have a very generous $200 donation from Enforcer for President. But sadly, even though that massive support, we can't address a comment because there is none attached, sadly. But Enforcer for President, thank you very much for that support. And also, you are a channel legend. I'm not exactly sure how the classifications go. I think it's... was it a day one person or not a soldat? It's a day one person. What are they called again?
If you were here before day 4, you're an old guard. If you're beyond day 4, you're a soldat.
Yeah, Enforcer for President, I believe, is the most legendary type. But I
think that specific account came around a little bit into the war. I believe the Enforcer for President account is a soldat, but I think if I remember correctly, the person behind the account, and I may be getting this wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, Enforcer for President, may be an old guard, but the account they're on is a soldat account. But regardless, I got to thank you so much for the support, because that is massive and helps out this channel greatly. And I got to thank you so much once again, because not only are you one of our biggest supporters in helping this channel to keep on running, you also have one of the coolest names in the live chat. Enforcer for President is one to go down in the books. And I got to thank you so much for your assured vote in 2040 for President of the United States, and also for helping us to keep this thing going, because if it wasn't for you, Enforcer for President, because you send in support that really does help us to keep this thing going behind the scenes and helps us to keep going to college and helps us to survive. If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be possible. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support. And also, long live the LSA, and thank you so much for your vote for me as president. With that, we are going to be moving on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Ray P, who says, have you seen the spider, spelled with an I, early warning device found on captured Wagner helmet? As always, thanks for your honest and in-depth coverage of the war.
And thank you, Ray. And I will have to say tonight, because I'm never going to be sitting here acting like it's perfect, because tonight, I thank you for the compliment, but I don't really feel like we met that standard with our Soledar information, because since it was developing in the middle of the stream, it seems, it wasn't accurate. We were reporting on the situation that I was seeing 3 hours before the stream, and then 5 hours later, in the middle of the stream, everything changed about Soledar. The Ukrainians weren't even holding it at all, and the Wagner had actually taken it in the middle of me compiling the news and running the stream. And I do thank you for the compliment, though, because we do try our best, and I tried to correct it as best as I could, make sure that we reported on that accurately, but still, because it happened in the middle of the stream, that's not an excuse. We try and make sure it's accurate literally up to the minute. It didn't really meet my standard tonight, but I do thank you so much for the support and the high praise. And let's check out this spider early warning system. Let's see, spiders. Spiders can detect danger coming their way with an early warning system called Eyes. You probably expect it. Oh man. How does spider sense? What is this?
I think you should put like military equipment behind it or something.
Early warning system.
They're talking about the animal or the insect.
Examples. I can't find anything on this at all.
He spelled it 2 different ways. He put spider like you have it spelled, and then he used a Y to spell it instead of an I.
Let me put down a Y, because maybe that's what the problem is. It is a laser early warning detection system to provide advanced warning of attacks. The Spider is a lightweight warning system used as a passive military defense. It detects, analyzes, and locates directions of laser emissions from laser guidance systems and laser rangefinders. So let's
I've never heard of that.
This thing. I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that at all.
It looks like a piece of junk.
Yeah,
like a cheap plastic.
It looks like a cheap ham radio thing that you hold, like a walkie-talkie. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, a walkie-talkie. So the Spider is there we go. Sergey, the Ukrainian military expert soldier, shared pictures of the captured Spider system and noted that the Russian language instruction manual was captured together with the device itself. Very fortunate in this instance. Let's see here. According to the user manual, the device can detect all existing laser rangefinders, illuminators, and designators operating in the range of 0.8 UP to 0.8, and I do not know what that symbol is.
Well, then that's nothing very special then. It's literally just detecting lasers, so it's not like anything super high-tech.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, if they're saying that this thing can detect missiles flying at them from, like, miles away, I was going to be like, that's highly unlikely. And also, that's not... It doesn't even look like it's really impressive, and on top of that, I don't really know a lot about the receptors, but the receptors look so small. Like they would have such a small field of view that you'd have to put several of these on a helmet to get like a whole 360 range to be able to know if a laser's getting you from anywhere. So I'm not really...
I bet if just a small bit of water gets on that thing, it's probably ruined.
Yeah, it probably is. I feel like this is really one of those feel-good devices that that they give to Russian soldiers that don't work, because we already know. Also, someone said micrometer. Thank you for sharing that, hard water. I didn't know that was a symbol for a micrometer. Anyways, moving back to this, I don't think this thing works at all. I think it's a feel-good device, to be honest with you, Ray, and it doesn't really do much of a job. Because if it did, then how come this thing was captured? If it can pick up lasers. Apparently it wasn't able to pick them up well enough to save the operator. So with that, I hope that does address the the support fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for viewers like you, Ray, and I'm saying, and I say this a good bit, but if it wasn't for viewers like you, we literally couldn't run the channel. You were helping single-handedly to keep this channel alive and running, and if it wasn't for your support, it wouldn't be possible. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, long live the Lee Spring Army.
All right, and up next, we have a $15 super chat from Egg Again, who says, love your work. F for the haters. Warkworth. Oh, excuse me. Wait a minute. Hold on. Warkworth.
Warkworth, New Zealand.
Warkworth, New Zealand.
And let's pull up Warkworth, New Zealand. And one thing that was interesting to me tonight is that someone at the very beginning said, "Oh, since the enforcer is 20, is it okay to call him a kid?" Like,
that was a bot.
Yeah, I know. And what was funny to me about that is, like, if you had said yes, Matthew, he would have said, "This kid doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He's stupid." You know, like, it's like,
It's like, why would you even ask that?
Yeah,
it's like, what difference does it make?
You know, and it's like on top of that, it's like, you know, it's like that's a really stupid question to ask. I don't sit there and go, "Hey, since that guy's like 70, can I call him a geezer?" Like, you don't ask questions like that in public. You treat people nice. You treat them polite. You don't sit there and just be rude. But let's take a look at this town. Let's see here. Let's drop down on the main road. Wow. This road is nice.
Strange landscape.
Also, the road is bizarrely perfect. Like, the tarmac doesn't even change in color. Like where the tires usually are on the road. Wow, that is a nice paving job. Whoever's paving the roads in New Zealand, we need them here. Man, this is actually not that bad of a place. This is really nice. It's like really clean. And it also has those British road signs. It looks just like the road signs in the United Kingdom. But man, wow, this is a nice town. I gotta say, man, thank you for the support, and also being an Elite Spring Army member from Warkworth, and hopefully we're pronouncing that right. But this is a cool place. Let's check out another part of the town rather than the main road. Let's go over here to... Yeah, no, we're not going to over here. That's the industrial area. Let's go to the residential area. No, the commercial area right here. This town is heavily divided, Matthew. Like, you can tell where the zoning is. Like, this is the industrial zoning. This is the commercial zoning. This is the residential zoning. They have that so well divided, you can literally see it from satellite.
Very compact town, too. Everything's like within, like, well, I was about to say walking distance, but maybe, depending on how athletic you are.
Man, wow, this is a nice place. Even the sidewalks are made with pavers. I mean, this is nice. Wow. I'm actually really blown away. Because usually...
They even have a computer store over there, too. That's something you don't see in America anymore.
Yeah, because Pizza Hut. It's not in that usual like stupid Pizza Hut building. I'm not really a big fan of Pizza Hut though, because they literally like spray grease out of a can on their pizzas, and you know it's like ew, you know it's kind of gross. But what's this right here? Pita Pit.
That looks good. I like those tomatoes.
Let's look at Pita Pit. Where in the world was it though? Which way were we going? I've lost it. Pita Pit. I can't find the thing now. It's not showing up. Huh. Sadly, we can't look.
Dennis Wilson said it looks like Montgomery, Alabama. Oh, no, it does not.
No,
it looks nowhere near Montgomery, Alabama. This is like luxury gone wild here in Auckland compared to Montgomery.
Let me show you, as for all of our viewers who don't know about Montgomery as a comparison. Let me find you a normal spot in Montgomery. So let me go down here to the Southern Highway, because this is what normal Montgomery kind of looks like. And I'll drop y'all down right here. And this is what normal Montgomery, Alabama looks like. The roads are falling apart. The malls have been shut down for decades. The town is falling apart. This does not at all look like Montgomery, Alabama, because this is what it looks like. I would know
what hell looks like on Earth in Montgomery.
I would know because we lived there a long amount of our lives, and it was not. It was really bad, just to say the least. But anyways, let's get back.
That's an understatement.
That is really an understatement. Like, I'm trying to be as positive as possible, but it's not that good. This isn't even close to Montgomery. This is like, I would honestly say this is very close to like Homewood here in Birmingham. Like, in terms of its niceness, it's really nice.
I would say.
And what's this? To say the least. But what's this right here? It looks like, interesting. You have two bridges. Like a pedestrian bridge. And also you have this wizard here doing photography. And then you also have this road bridge. And let's look at that river. That river is as brown as the goose. I wonder if it smells like dead fish. Thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we've addressed that fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this thing to keep going. Also, about the haters and the bots, we don't really give them much attention anymore. Well, we do whenever it's funny. But we don't give ones that are just, being here to be here. We don't give them that much attention anymore because, they're stupid. and it's kind of a waste of our time. But thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you so much for being a Lee Spring Army member and also a big fan of the Enforcer channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
Right. And up next, we have a $12 super chat from Mr. Attitude, who says, Matt, why is the sky blue? Well, let's see. The sky is blue because of chemicals. It's in the ozone layer and some reason. But seriously speaking, I have no clue. But anyways.
Why is the sky blue? Why is it blue, Matthew?
Has something to do with the atmosphere.
As white
Obviously.
light passes through our atmosphere, tiny air molecules cause it to scatter. This scattering caused by these tiny air molecules, known as Rayleigh scattering, increases as the wavelength of light decreases. Violet and blue light have the shortest wavelengths, and red has the longest. So there's your explanation.
What's that like album art cover off of that art from that
Pink Floyd?
What am I trying to say? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm mumbling through it.
Yeah, Pink Floyd's Prism thing. Also, I like this illustration here because that dog looks like it sniffs.
Patron.
No, it's not. That thing looks like it sniffs nickels. It's just like nickel. It just like sniffs the thing up its nostril. Also, this little guy here, man, that kind of looks like Matthew.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
You know, like the Ferris Bueller Day Off, the white t-shirt, blue jeans thing picture.
I think you're seeing things.
No, dude, the clothes look just like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I'm not the only one seeing that, right? Okay, apparently I'm the only one seeing it. I don't know. Live chat, bag me up if you can. If not, just let me know and then beat me over the head with it. But with that, I think we're on to the next one. I think.
Yes, we are.
That answers why the sky is blue. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat once again from Psyops, who says, News 24 is back. This could be rough. News 24 here with the breaking allegations against Mr. Corgi. I gotta say it real low or he'll get upset. Mr. Corgi, how do you explain the video of you attacking Mr. Squeaky and viciously rubbing your butt on Enforcer Matt's pillow? And Psyops got a little edgy there at the end, but that was a pretty PG one for Psyops. But thank you very much for the support, Psyops. And Mr. Corgi is not allowed up in that area of the house, so luckily he doesn't do that.
Mr. Corgi, if he could answer, he'd be like, I don't do that. don't blame me. But I thank you so much for the support, Psyops. And also, Mr. Corgi, to explain the dynamic that goes on here in this house, let me lay out the story for y'all. Mr. Corgi was our first Corgi, and he nearly died due to kennel cough when he was a little wee baby. But we nursed him through health through a massive amount of opium that we put into his system, and somehow he recovered. We don't really know how, but he lived. So he started to grow up, and when he was about 1.5 years old, he started to just stare out windows nonstop. Like, he wouldn't do much. He would just sit around and stare out windows and just want petting from people. And so we thought he was getting really sad and really lonely. So we're like, oh no, we need to get him a friend. Well, that's what my mom said. And I was like, no, he's fine. He's just, he's mellowing out, I guess. And she's like, no, he needs a friend. So then she got a Corgi, and we, eventually got it. And it came home, and we named it Sheba, and that's our girl Corgi. Mr. Corgi is a boy Corgi. And as she grew up, she started to get more and more aggressive against Mr. Corgi, to the point, and Mr. Corgi won't do anything back. Like, he will not, well, he has every once in a while, but that's an extreme circumstance. He won't do anything back to her, really. So she'll just beat the hell out of him, and he doesn't do anything in response. He'll just take it. Unless if it's something serious like food, then he'll actually slaughter. Like, he turns into a little ninja somehow whenever he needs to. And also Tom Exman said, seriously? Opium? Oh yeah, man. We had that dog on opium like it was a Chinese person in the 1830s before the first opium war. I mean, like, that poor dog was having to, like, be on opium every day. It was actually really scary because we didn't know if he'd live, and the veterinarian thought he was going to die. That's why he gave us opium and told us to give him so much of it, because it was either make him comfortable so that way he can die peacefully, or let him feel the pain of all the coughing that he's doing until he dies. That's pretty much the vet's philosophy of what was happening. We didn't know that until afterwards, but he told us, here, give this to him, maybe it'll make him feel better. Apparently it did. Apparently it worked. But that's actually the dynamic. I know that wasn't what the super chat was about, Psyops. It was about the allegations against Mr. Corgi, but that's the dynamic amongst the Corgis. I think Mr. Corgi's like 6 years old now, too.
Something like that. I think 5.5 maybe.
Yeah, and also, in case y'all are wondering, because y'all are like, oh, Tom X-Men actually asked me, he said, my gosh, gee, how did he handle, excuse me, how do you handle the withdrawal? How do you handle that withdrawal?
That was a dad sneeze type deal going on right there.
Yeah. He didn't handle it well. He actually got pretty angry once we stopped giving it to him. Because, like, you know, that affects everyone, I think, equally, like an opium addiction. So he had to eventually get over it. And maybe that's the reason why he mellowed out, Matthew, because his endorphin receptors had been so jacked up from taking opium as a puppy that he never really gets endorphins anymore.
He probably had to take that stuff for like a really long time for that to happen. He was only taking it, I think, for like a month.
I think it was like a month and a half or two. We'll have to check with Mama because she was the one giving the puppy the opium. And it was like watered up opium. It was like a little solution that had it in it. But anyways, with that, I hope that gives a little bit of a backstory to our dogs a little bit better. Y'all have only seen Mr. Corgi ever. Y'all have never seen Sheba. And I think Sheba's like the sweeter of the two. Because she, like, while she beats the hell out of Mr. Corgi, she is super sweet to people. Well, just Matthew, me, and my mom, and my dad. She's not really sweet to anyone else. She's really, like, hesitant about meeting new people, but she loves new people once she actually gets to know them. And Mike Ellick said, Mr. Corgi is stoned 24/7. That's why he just sits around calmly, Matthew. He's like, bro, just chill out, man. But thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you, Cyrus, for being a channel legend and helping us to keep this thing running.
And I saw I Am Gift Bearer and also Try and Take Alaska saying, I've never heard of opium being used in veterinary medicine. I don't know like hardly anything about vet medicine, but the vet that we had was a real country type doctor. Like he believed in like letting things kind of, run their course without really tending to them. But on this one, he thought Mr. Corgi was going to die, so he resorted to that. So hopefully it wasn't poisonous, but I think it saved his life somehow, because that poor dog was on his last leg, but somehow he pulled through it, the poor thing. It was really horrific, but there's no telling. But nonetheless, we are on to the next Super Chat. And real quick here, let me make sure I didn't miss one, and I did not. So the next one we have is from Psyops, who comes in with another $20 donation and another News 24 story. He says, here with the breaking story of Mr. Corgi being illegally held in dog jail. Show us Mr. Corgi now. We need floof.
And I would, Psyops, if we were actually like on a camera, I would probably like grab him out of his cage. He probably wouldn't want to come out because they have a very strict sleeping schedule, and they actually they're very smart dogs. They actually put themselves to bed when they get ready. Like when they get tired enough, they just go to bed. They're very, very smart. I don't think he would come out for me, but if we had a camera and we were on stream on camera, I would make sure to get Little Misselwerg out and put him in front of the camera again, because I love Misselwerg, and I think everyone else does too. He's super sweet, and also I think that, oh, sorry for the voice crack, by the way. And I think that Sheba should also be on camera eventually. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops, and we would if we could, I promise you. Also, someone said, that kind of sounds a little sketch. To be honest with y'all, that's probably the best veterinarian we ever ran into, because the other vet that we were bringing Mr. Corgi to before we brought him to our normal vet, which was this guy in particular, they were giving him medicine that the other veterinarian said he hadn't seen in 20 years. So I think he was more so on the right path. On top of that, the dog did live, and even he didn't expect the dog to survive. So I think that was the right call. Like usually giving an animal or a person straight up opium, like some people said opiates. No, it was opium. Like it was actual opium bulbs that would be crushed up into like a fine powder and then put into the water, and had like this brownish color to it. I don't know. I don't really know a lot about it. All I saw was like the bottle every once in a while, but it was straight up opium. And I think it's what saved him, really, because he didn't have any other medications. No one expected him to survive. Everyone thought he would be dead one morning, and he just came through it fine. It wasn't supposed to happen. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again, Psyops, for the support, because you've been helping out this channel massively lately. And of course, without you, Psyops, we wouldn't be able to run this thing. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
East Malibu said, I need to hook up with your vet. And, the funny thing is, somebody actually broken in to his, pharmaceutical safe in his vet to, steal the exact medicine that Mr. Corgi was going to get, I think a week prior or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people wanted to hook up with him, apparently.
Because, you see, I'll show y'all in case y'all haven't seen it. I'm sure everyone's seen it, but this is what an opium bulb looks like. That's what they had. It was literally just raw opium bulbs that they had in this little, it was pretty much just at the start, a little steel, aluminum box with a lift up top. You could just get a little small key, unlock the key, and then lift it up. Really no security. But someone threw in a stone through the window of the vet, ran in there, and then stole the box. So then they started putting this stuff in a safe, like a proper safe, and then someone busted through the window again, attached a rope with a winch to their truck, and put their truck, according to the vet that we were at, because he had security cameras that saw the whole thing, in full speed in reverse, which yanked the safe door off, and then they stole the little box again. So yes, that has happened. That is the thing that happened to that guy. Luckily, he had someone, Mr. Corgi needed it, though. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next super chat we have goes to BC Skyman, who puts in a $10 donation, but sadly does not leave a comment. But BC, thank you very much for your continued support over the many months, and we do appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much, BC Skyman. You have been here ever since day 3, I believe. I think you were here the night we blew up. And so I gotta thank you so much once again for being an old guard and also helping this channel to keep on running. You've been here since the very beginning of time. And if anyone can be accounted for really sticking it through the course with us, it is definitely you. I mean, you have hardly missed a night, save the occasional hunting trip, and then you come back and you're still here. And I gotta thank you so much for that, because it means a lot to us to know that people find this channel to be of worth and watch it so much. And also, BC, I did hear about the proposal you had sent to Matthew. If you could DM me and send me a message, I will make sure to try and carry through on that as soon as we can. But thank you so much once again, BC Skyman. I hope that does address the support fairly well. And I got to thank you so much once again, because like everything, y'all's support is a choice. And y'all can go and support anything y'all really want to. Y'all can go do anything you want to. And it's a high honor that y'all support us to keep this thing running, and y'all choose to. And I think that's a great system, because if y'all don't find this channel to be worth anything, y'all don't have to support it at all. Y'all could just sit here and watch. But if you want to, you can, and then you get to decide how much. It could be $1, and it could be all the way up to however much you want to give. I think that's honestly the best system that there is out there on YouTube right now, because you don't have to sit there and watch an ad. You don't have to sit there and watch anything. This thing is entirely free to anyone who wants to watch. You don't even have to waste a second of your time if you don't want to. And I gotta just thank you so much once again, BC Skyman, for always helping us out, even though you could really do whatever you want and not support us if you didn't want to. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And Marion Dymart, Matthew, just said, folks, let's send this let us send this channel viral. Help the guys go viral. And thank you so much, Marion. And the best way you could do that, the best way, I'll tell you, share this with your friends. I've been sharing this around the college I go to, and I think some of them may be watching. I don't know. When I go to the class again, I'll find out. But
there were.
Oh, there were?
Yeah, some guy, I think by the name of Nathaniel, was here.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. Did he sign off?
I think he left for the night.
Dude, that's actually pretty cool. That's actually crazy. I didn't think anyone would watch. That's really cool. But if you want to share it around with your friends, share it around with your friends. Tell your friends to share it around with their friends. Just keep sharing it. Tell your local news net. Well, not your local news networks, unless you're in Alabama. That I don't really think that will work. But tell your local news networks about us and be like, hey, you might want to bring them on your show if they're in Alabama. and other things like that. We can make this channel go viral, but it's always an effort that Matthew Meir is trying to undertake, and also the Lee Spring Army has to undertake as a whole. If you have a Reddit account with karma on it, go around and post stuff about our streams. Like, hey, these guys just ran a stream last night explaining everything here, and it actually happened live on their stream, like tonight with the Russians taking Soledar. That happened in the middle of the stream, and we were here to change the story and report on that. And just share it around. If y'all want this thing to go viral, y'all can help us, and we can. We've kind of gone viral a little bit in a way, because I believe we are like the #1 watched stream on the war in Ukraine that goes up daily. But I may be wrong on that. I don't know, because I don't really look around YouTube much. But with that, thank you so much once again for those kind words, Marion. And if you do want to do that, you can, and the entire Lee Spring Army can as well. So if you'll want to, go ahead. I'll be more than happy for y'all to help me go viral. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, also, Fushikona, I'm going to check that DM here in just a second. My second screen, of course, right when I went to go check that, is going a little funky. But apparently that's not as bad as Mech Tactical, who's apparently busted the screen on his very nice and high-end gaming laptop from what I was reading there. Goodness. Oh. Ooh. I gotta say, Mech, that hit my soul like really hard when I read that, because I've messed up a monitor before, but I've never messed up a laptop, so I feel your pain. But anyways, up next we have a $20 super chat, believe it or not, once again from Psyops, who's going bonkers tonight with the support, and thank you very much for that, Psyops. Who's also a mod, by the way, who says, News 24 here. Mr. Corgi drugged against his will to prevent him testifying about the peanut butter incident.
Oh, God, huh? You don't know what that is?
No.
Oh, Lord, just keep reading it then, don't worry.
Also, any news about the ammo box house shown in August? If not, Oklahoma on stream.
You got...
Or if not, show Oklahoma on stream.
You got him, Psyops. I'm not... I can't address that. But, yeah, you got... the heat's been had. Now, you see, y'all are probably wondering, how in the world do I know about that joke? And the reason why, because I grew up in a high school, a public high school, like a public school. And that may mean something different to British viewers. Here in America, public school is where you go if your parents don't have a lot of money that they want to spend on you to go to a school where you hang out with like pretty much a social club of kids. So you find out everything at public school. So unfortunately, I found out about that specific thing from a friend that I don't really talk too much anymore, like really everyone else from high school except for one person. But moving on from that, it's Mr. Corky. I guess he kind of was, but it saved his life, so I guess he's kind of happy about it. Anyways, moving on from that, we haven't gotten any news about the ammo box house anymore either. So I guess we have to hold up our end of the bargain and show Oklahoma. This time we're not going to Oklahoma City. We're going to Hennessy, where the Hennessy's made. I wonder if they got those vending machines with like the cups filled with ice here for the Hennessy. Mercantile.
Oh, I was just looking at this image that Fushikone sent me. He was wanting me to check out in the Discord, and I'm baffled. I'm looking at it trying to figure out something, because he says it was made by artificial intelligence, but I'm at a complete loss at how it did this, because it's so complex.
Can you send it to me?
I can't even believe it, really. I'm staring at it, and it's so like professionally done. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I'll actually tell you an idea I had, because I found out about the AI art generators. I don't really know how to use them, though, or where to find them. But I had an idea that it would probably be really easy to make videos with custom-made art and backgrounds without having to incur a massive budget to do it with AI art, because it just automatically generates the stuff. So I was thinking, maybe in the future, oh my God, that is impeccable.
That's nuts to believe that a computer made that on its own.
That is unbelievable. That looks a lot like Mr. Corgi.
I'm baffled by that. It's scary how good artificial intelligence is getting. That's beyond belief.
That is crazy. And I think let's test this out right here on here. Let me pull it up on the second page though. I think the one I heard a lot about was Diffuse AI. Let me see if that is a stability diffusion. And let me see if this works real quick before I show it on screen here. So, is there any way you can just make the art? I guess here?
I think you have to give it a description of what you're looking for, and then it compiles it, I think.
So, let's see, getting started. I don't really know how that works. I guess I'd have to look into that a little bit more. But that was an idea I had about how to make videos with some, AI generated art stuff. Because if y'all saw the corgi, I'll actually show it to y'all. It is impressive. Like, that's the AI generated corgi right there. Like, that thing's crazy good looking. Like, look, it even has, like, the little, like, bits of, like, spit on its tongue. Like, it's actually gotten that down. Like, that kind of detail is what you'd find, like, a professional artist doing. Like, that's crazy.
It looks like it took an image of a corgi, it cut the background out, and then it put it on top of the table over a background of, I guess, like a royal setting or something like that. Really, like, regal looking. And I don't know how it knew to put it on top of the table and everything.
I mean, that's just crazy, though. Like, it even has the shadow on the table for the dog.
That's he told me which site it was. He said it's midjourney.com. It's an artificial intelligence engine.
Let me pull that up on the second screen, and I'll throw it over here if we can get anything. So midjourney.com. Let's see. So About is an independent research lab exploring new mediums of thought and expanding the imaginative powers of the human species. Sounds very high-end. Let's see here. Apparently we can join the beta. And let me see what... Oh, wait a minute. No thank you. That threw
costs money?
No, that threw up something on my Discord that, it was like, you want to join our server. I don't think we want to right now on stream, but that is pretty cool, I would have to say. Sadly, I'll have to try and look into that off stream, but I think that could be a direction we could go to actually add something in a little bit more to our videos than just me talking and showing a computer screen, whenever we can get back around to them. I wonder, Matthew, could we make the Lee Spring Army logo on that thing? Like, come up with an actual, like, whole different variants of them, just tons of them. I don't know.
Well, see, when you said that, I was just thinking in my mind, this might be like the new way merch ideas are created. I go put a description into the AI, and then I turn around and actually make something myself based on something the AI came up with. That might be a good tool to use.
I mean, that may actually be pretty cool. I'm going to look into joining their beta and their server here in a little bit. But with that, we are on to the next one, and that was super cool. I didn't even know that kind of thing existed. But thank you so much once again for the support, Saps, and throwing in another News 24 snippet. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, you got Matthew. That was also pretty funny, too.
I still have no idea what that means, but I'll find out sooner or later. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from Anthony, who says, I think the FSB now has a division solely dedicated to just being bots on YouTube and social media. That would explain why bots have access to outside media.
And I believe that may be true, and a lot of them get really in-depth, because y'all may remember that there was a beef in between me and the Mercado channel, and it ended up being propagated largely and instigated by bots at the end. We kind of found that out, which was really bizarre, because when we emailed him to clear up the whole thing like a month after it happened, and it just kept going because, we kept on thinking that each other was saying things about the other. And then we finally looked into it, and I had my mods comb over a whole stream where he supposedly said something, and he said nothing. So then we sent him an email, and we're like, someone told us you had said something, you said nothing. Now we're throwing into question whether you've said anything ever since the original bit. That was actually based off of anything rather than what these bots were saying. And then he came back and said, hey, sorry, apparently that was a misunderstanding. I think it's like Russian bots like trying to pit us against each other. And then just like 2 days later, a bot came in there. It came into the stream after we had cleared up the beef and gotten it over with. And they sat there and said, hey, you wouldn't believe what he just said about you on his stream. He just like absolutely roasted you. And we're like, no, he didn't, because, that's been a lie over time. And then just about 10 minutes after that message came in, and it just kind of normally chatted a little bit, it just went into straight Russian bot mode. And we were like, wow, that actually happened. Like, these bots are paying so much attention to what's going on that they're actually being able to come up with ways to try and divide the Ukraine war, I guess you could say, genre on YouTube, which is actually really insane. But with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, because I think that they may be doing that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that did address the comment fairly well with a story to back it up. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Wes, if you paste a link into our chat, sadly, Nightbot will get it and remove it. But if you'd like to send me a link to something you're trying to show me, you can send it to me on Discord, and my username is @EnforcerMatt over there. I should be up on the side column on Discord. But anyways, our next super chat goes to Psyops yet again, who puts in another $20 donation and says, Soledar update, please. This is for Mr. Uncle Grandpa. Also, I hear the Russians are salty.
And also, thank you for the support, Psyops. And also, Uncle Grandpa, I have seen you in here, and and Psyops, I thank you so much for the support. And also, thank you, Uncle Grandpa, for just being here. You've been here for literally ever. And I got to thank you so much just for being here tonight. But moving on from that, to give an update on what the situation in Soledar is looking like again, it appears that the Russians have actually finally taken Soledar in its entirety. We can see that here on the Deep State UA map. They have not taken the hill, however, that's in the Soledar area. So the Ukrainians may still be holding this, or they may be in the process of withdrawing, because if y'all look at this map, y'all may notice that there's this grayish field that is over the area in between the clear and the red. This is supposedly the no man's land that Deep State UA lays out, but there has been a lot of variability with this no man's land. Sometimes the Ukrainians are right inside of it, and it's there on the Deep State UA map, so we don't really know if the Ukrainians are in this no man's land or not, but they may be holding that hill still. The Russians, however, did finally take the town, which pushed the Ukrainians out of their first line of defense, which they had been holding for nearly 4 months. They're now moving into the second line of defense along the railroad line at Blahodotny and also Krasna Ora, where they're going to be putting up their last line of defense for the northern flank. If they lose this line of defense, the Russians will take the E30 highway, which will block an entire supply line from entering Bakhmut and supplying their forces. So now twice the supply volume and traffic will have to travel along the T0504 to the southwest of Bakhmut to try and keep the forces in there going. Not only that, but the battle will extend not just from the east of Bakhmut, but it would now begin on the northern area of Bakhmut if the Russians finally take Krasna Ora. The situation does look very difficult in this area, and it's not really developing to Ukraine's advantage, but we hopefully will see that the Ukrainians will be able to hold the Russians at Blahodotny and Krasna Ora as well as they were able to in Soledar, because if they can, that means that the Ukrainians may be able to get another 2 to 3 months of defense out of Krasna Ora before it falls as well, and by that time we would assume that the battle would have ended, although it hasn't ended at this point. And it looks like the Russians will keep this going until they finally take this town, which may be, at this going rate, a half year in the future, or 3 months in the future. But it's going to be a long time. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. Also, one more thing I forgot to throw in is that while the Russians will finally take the town, it's going to end up very similar to the battles of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, where they did take the towns, but the amount of losses that they took and the amount of time it actually took to take them meant that it was a Pyrrhic victory. And while they finally did take their objective, the amount of losses they took and the amount of time it required to take them pretty much made the advantages completely moot and pointless on a strategic sense. So with that, I hope that does address the analysis fairly well in a concise way. And with that, we're going to be moving on into the next one. And thank you so much once again for a bit of support, Psyops. You have been throwing them in like a machine tonight, and I got to thank you so much because it really is helping out this channel. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Michael Elmore, who sadly does not leave a comment on this one. But Michael, thank you very much for the support, and also thank you for being around for a very long time as well. Enforcer, what say you?
I say Michael Elmore, or shall I call you Mike? Oh no! But thank you so much for the support, Michael Elmore. You are helping this channel to keep on running with that support. And while you didn't throw in a comment, the support does tell us to keep this thing running. And we are trying our best to keep this thing running day in, day out. Even with me going to college every single day of the week now, which I've got to tell y'all, along with doing this every day, it is, going to be honest, getting a little tiring. But we will stick through. I've only got about 13 weeks left to do this. So that's no big deal. I already got through 1 week. There's only 13 left. But with that, thank you so much once again, Michael. You are helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Emperor, the Senate Palpatine, who puts in a $5 donation and says, Putin have only 2 brain cells, and both are fighting for 3rd place. Wheels are spinning, but the hamster was dead.
Oh. The wheel is spinning, but the hamster's dead. I hope you're not talking
That means
about
just flipping around on the wheel.
you just hear the little meaty thwack of it falling from the top to the bottom. You just hear but
wet.
yeah, that's not really the best idea, but I thank you so much for the support, and I would have to agree with you. If Putin doesn't really have a lot up there in the head, hopefully the next thing he gets up there is a little bit of lead in the head. I think at that point they would call him a lead head. But I do have to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because without it, we wouldn't be able to sit here and talk about Putin possibly getting lead in the head. And I believe, Matthew, that would be an acute case of lead poisoning.
It would, actually. Very acute. Very nasty.
Every time I say acute, Matthew, I always think of someone going, "Aw, how cute! He's got lead poisoning." But anyways,
oh, he got lead poisoning. How cute!
Aw, he went the way of JFK. Look at him. Oh, look at him. He's just gone and everything. Sergei's taking over, or whoever the other guy is.
He's dancing now. How cute!
Aw, he's doing a thing. Aw, look at him. He's had an epileptic fit. Oh, look at him go. But anyways, I'm getting a little overboard with that. Thank you so much once again for the support, though, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And also, some pretty good jokes right there. Some pretty solid ones. And we love good jokes. And so with that, it is now time to get to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $25 excuse me, a $25 super chat from Mech Tactical. And Mech, you didn't have to support us tonight, man, because you wrecked your laptop. But anyways, thank you for the support nonetheless. And hopefully the laptop is in repairable condition. But Mech says, it sounds like it is time to seal up the mine shafts. I promise you the Russians are moving as many troops as they can in it to stay warm. HIMARS, anybody? It is time to hit those little salt mines, I think.
And now something funny, Mick, about the support, Matthew, and him breaking his screen is that he's about to go onto Amazon to buy a new one, and it's going to say insufficient funds, missing $27.99 Canadian dollars. He's going to go shit. He's going to be like, dang it. But still, thank you so much for helping out this channel tonight, Mick Tactical, and I hope you do get a new LC, a new display, and hopefully it's not that expensive. But I think it would be time for them to seal up the mine shafts. Honestly, I think it would be hilarious to see them start a fire down there in a mine shaft, so that way it would suck out all the oxygen. So if a Russian went down there, they'd be like, "I'm getting sleepy, Bliat. What is this?" And they're just not breathing anything. There's no oxygen down there, so they just get tired and just go to sleep, like literally. But
not breathing. Have you ever heard somebody use the expression, "They got caught not breathing"?
I haven't actually. I don't know where the hell that would come from, honestly. Like
I heard somebody say that yesterday. I was like, they got caught not breathing. Like, what the hell does that supposed to mean? Like, you don't catch that means you caught somebody dead.
Yeah, that's true. What is that really supposed to mean? Yeah, I'm trying to process this. What does that even mean? That's like saying I woke up dead one morning. First off, you wouldn't even be awake to recognize it.
Really.
But anyways, moving on from that, I think they should do that. I think they should close all the mine shafts or something similar. Make sure they keep warm. And also, I think a HIMARS would be pretty effective on the Russians in that area if they can use it. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Make Tactical, and helping out this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. And thank you so much once again. And also, Matthew, Green Man said, what about the Alabama? Oh, you did it again. But before we get to that, let's see, where was it? Green Man said, what about Alabama Twisters today? I actually went to university in the storm. Like, I actually just went to class. I was like, it's a tougher, weaker people have survived this. And I'm not saying I'm the strongest person out there, but yeah, we didn't really have them where we were in Birmingham, or in Birmingham at all. So I just went to college, and it was just really rainy outside, very rainy, and it was flooding in some areas. I had to actually like drive through like near flash flood conditions in some spots, but wasn't that bad overall. I got to class, did a presentation, and it seems like the people who were there in that class thought it was a pretty good one. And I hope it was, because I was trying to make it as interesting as possible, because it's a history class, and if you present it boring, it will be very boring. So I was trying to make it as interesting as possible. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And let's get on into the next one.
All Right. And up next, we have another $25 super chat from Mech Tactical, who says it was a Ryzen 9 5000 series ROG G513. No idea how it broke. Look it up. Promise you'll cry, LOL. And also, Mech, I know the exact computer you're talking about. I've looked at that one before. He says, promise you'll cry. It's nuts. The bottom half is still more powerful than most computers. I'll just plug in an external monitor until then. The LSC must roll. Oh, that is actually very smart. Like, you can still use the computer minus the screen, but hopefully you can get the screen part repaired.
How much does it cost, Matthew? Give us a price.
I think it's like $2,500 to $3,000.
Ooh! Dang, that is expensive. Golly. Like,
It's nuts. And it will make you cry if you broke it.
man, that would make you cry. I don't even know how you're not crying right now, man. But thank you so
He
much.
might be.
He might be. He's sitting there putting in the 27.99 going, and then he sends it in. But still, thank you so much for the support, Mech Tactical. And I hope it sorts itself out and it's not that big of a problem and that you can find some way to kind of get lucky, I guess. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Mech Tactical. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And to be honest with y'all, doing that crying impersonation thing, that actually just made me like faint. Like, honestly, I use so much oxygen and use so much breath doing that crying thing that I now feel very faint and lightheaded. So with that, we are on to the next. And thank you once again for the support, Mech Tactical.
All right. And up next, we have a little bit of a glitch in the spreadsheet that's not moving. While we're waiting here, I saw Mech Tactical say, no worries, I'm well off. Well, that is definitely good to hear, Mech, because that is a disaster to try to repair at $2,500 or $3,000. Come on, spreadsheet. We don't have all night. I can't stall forever either.
Also, Matthew, one thing I was thinking, because I'm always looking through the live chat, looking for people returning. Remember when Speed Break came back and he was like, hey guys, I'm back. I'll be back more often. And then he didn't come back again. I was like, dang it. I was wondering, like, right now, I was like, I wonder if Speed Break will be in tonight. Because if y'all don't know, Speed Break is an old guard that has gotten kind of busy lately and he wasn't able to get on much. He hopped on like a week and a half ago. And he hasn't been on again since. And I've been like, where's Speed Break? I always want to know where everyone. I always want to make sure that like everyone just sticks around because I get used to y'all so much that when y'all are gone, I actually notice it. Like Monturn, well, not Monturn. It was Zeta Lane. Because Monturn's still here, so don't think you're missing. You are still here. But Zeta Lane and like a whole bunch of others. Like sometimes some people just go disappear off the face of the earth. Oh, but still, you know, if y'all know where they are, just let them know. I miss them, and I hope they're all right and safe. And if they just got tired of the war, I hate to hear that, but I hope they're doing fine. But anyways, with that, hopefully your spreadsheet is working again, Matthew.
It is working, thank goodness.
All right. Matthew's just going to leave me hanging there. He's like, it is working. Thank God. I was hoping you would go. And with that, we're moving on. It's just like, praise God.
Yes.
Anyways, let's get on to the next one.
All right. And Robin M said, how do you stay in shape? I naturally stay in shape somehow. I used to lift weights a little bit, but I didn't do that for very long because I realized I didn't like doing that. So I figured I'd just stay the way I am. But no, somehow I just have a really high metabolism and I stay in shape like naturally. It's really weird. But anyways, up next we have a $50 super chat, CHF. I'm not really sure what that is, but thank you very much. From JMaz, who says neutrality is in the Swiss Constitution, Article 173, based on the Hague Convention of 1907, Article 7-9. If the Swiss send weapon and ammo to Ukraine, they must also provide them to Russia if requests or is breaking international agreements or constitution, a good sign to the world.
You wouldn't believe this, Matthew, but do you know where this person's from?
Probably Switzerland.
That's right. CHF stands for Swiss franc. That's the abbreviation for it. I don't know how it works out.
Where they get the CH from?
Yeah, I'm wondering where that comes from. Like the Confederation. Yeah, I don't know where that would come from. I don't really know what that is because it's a Swiss franc. So JMass is actually from Switzerland, and he's there right now, and he's telling us how the Swiss government works. And you're right, and that's one thing that I have been talking about before is that the Swiss have kind of neutrality written into them. Ever since the Congress of Vienna in 1815, Switzerland has been outlined as a neutral state. It must stay one back then to maintain the balance of power in Europe. And then later on, after the balance of power idea kind of went out of being, it had already become a part of Switzerland's constitution and something you really couldn't do anything about. And that's why you don't see the Swiss really getting involved in anything, because technically, as a government and as a nation, they forbid themselves from doing it for the most part. So even right now, while it appears that the Swiss are going hardcore, well, actually not hardcore, it appears that the Swiss are going really light on supporting Ukraine, and they are doing everything they can, all the way up until they're about to start violating their constitution directly. So that is true, and that's one thing I have tried to explain, because it would be nice to see the Swiss supporting Ukraine, but at the same time, if they did, there's a lot of problems there. Switzerland is no longer a neutral country. They're violating their constitution, a whole bunch of other stuff like that. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm not really one to give Switzerland that much of a hard time, because while it's always not great for a neutral country to be neutral when you want them to support, it is important in the future. Switzerland is one of the few countries in the world that anyone ever can go to ask to have peace negotiations held there, because there's no question Switzerland is always a neutral party, and except for right now with Russia. Finally, they've done something, but it's a kind of a big deal to me that Switzerland does stay neutral. I'm kind of in the camp that while the Swiss aren't really helping out with Gepard ammo, the Germans could easily help out with Gepard ammo if they want to. They could probably produce their own Gepard ammo and send it to Ukraine, and they should be doing that. Germany is a much larger country and a member of NATO. If anyone should be doing it, they should be. And I think it is somewhat important, honestly. While it isn't beneficial for Ukraine in the short term, it's beneficial for the entire world in the long run, as Switzerland does remain a neutral country. So I'm not one to really rack on Switzerland for that. It's just what they do, and it makes Switzerland very unique in its own way. And also, East Malibu said, "And your money is safe." Yes, it is. Switzerland will open up a bank account for anyone, literally. Did you know this, Matthew? I think Al Qaeda actually had a bank account with the Swiss bank.
Yeah, I actually knew that. The Swiss seem to take everyone's money. They're not discriminatory like that.
And also if you want to, because a lot of people always talk about, Switzerland this, Switzerland that. And then people also like to talk about how a lot of governments these days, even the ones here in the West, have a lot of prying eyes in on your personal life. To let y'all know how different of a country Switzerland is compared to the norm, a while ago, the chief of police of Switzerland came out, the federal guy who's in charge of, I guess, the federal police, well, not really the federal, because Switzerland's a confederation. But anyways, the head honcho, I guess you could say, of the police in Switzerland came out and said, there are terrorists living in Switzerland. We know this, but we don't really know who they are. We don't even know where they are. We don't even know where they live. But they're out here somewhere. But there's really no way for us to find them without violating their rights. We just wanted to let y'all know there's terrorists in Switzerland somewhere. And then they went back into their office, and that was the end of that. They are such an interesting country in terms of their neutrality that they exhibit towards their citizenry and internationally, that just really, Switzerland is just kind of like a laissez-faire country. Anything goes. And, while in the United States perspective and the rest of NATO, that's not really great. You got to understand that Switzerland is, in some ways, allows for us to do things that we wouldn't be able to do if it wasn't for Switzerland, but at the same time, considering that they're neutral, it also lets the people that we don't like do things that they couldn't otherwise do if Switzerland wasn't neutral. And I know, Mick, you just said, but their neutrality irks me. It kind of doesn't to me, because if you understand where it came from and the history behind it, I wouldn't really want them to break the tradition of their neutrality, because it's meant so much to the world so far, and it's allowed for very exceptional things to occur. That wouldn't have otherwise happened if Switzerland wasn't neutral. It's just special. That's all I have to say. But with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much, JMoss, for supporting the stream fairly well with your support. And also, let me put this in CHF to US dollar. Is the Swiss franc is worth more than an American dollar.
It is.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. I didn't know that. 1 Swiss franc is equivalent to $1.07. And it hasn't really, actually, it's fluctuated a lot over the years. Back in 2022, it used to be worth just $1. It has skyrocketed. Crazy, actually. Pretty insane. It's been gradually rising Like interestingly enough, man, you listen to this. Back in 1984, a Swiss franc was worth 41 cents. Now, in the modern day, a Swiss franc is worth $1.07.
That's a pretty good value right there.
Yeah, that's really good value. The Swiss currency is really holding up well. But
you know what I want to know though? I want to know, like, when ISIS went to go open their bank account, like, how did that conversation go? Like, them walking into the bank, like, what? Like, they walk in, they're like, "Oh, okay." The banker's like, "Okay, guys, so what kind of business are you guys in?" We do demolition. It's like, how does conversation go? And they're like, "Yeah, we'll open an account for you, no problem."
No, dude, like with the Swiss bank, you come in, "Hi, how can we help you? We are international terrorists and we want to open up a bank account." "Oh, step right in. We got just the thing."
Yes.
We even got.
Would you like some biscuits? Would you like some coffee?
We even got CDs with 3% interest. Oh, really? Yeah. You want to get some?
Yeah. Have y'all ever heard of this thing called the NASDAQ? Oh no.
You know, we actually have hedge funds that you can invest this into. They actually will make a good return on your income. Well, actually, your account. Really? Yeah. You know, like that's what the Swiss do, and they'll do that with the United States. Like, for example, you know, sometimes with somewhat interesting things like the CIA does. We need a clandestine account open. The Swiss go, "Sure. How much are you going to put into it?" And that's how it works. Also, if you ever get into trouble, like, you know, like, and we're not going to get into politics here, but let's say you got into trouble wrongfully with your country and you need to go somewhere, and because of the political implications, let's say they're a Chinese person that's gotten in trouble with the Chinese government. They can't come to the United States because we don't want the political heat or the diplomatic heat from that the Chinese would give us. So where do you go? You go to Switzerland, because in Switzerland, no one's going to have a problem. And it's not really like anyone can make a big deal about it because Switzerland's been neutral since forever. So in that instance, it benefits. It benefits that person, and maybe in the end, it benefits the world. But that's how it works. You know, it works both ways. It's a double-edged sword. The neutrality is beneficial to us in some degrees, not so much in others. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mike Miners, who puts in a $20 donation and says, "If Belarus attacks with Russia from the north, do you think Ukraine would blow the few bridges across the Pripyat River and claim the land up to the river into Belarus for defense?"
I think they may. If you're talking about going into Belarus, though, I do not think so. Most likely not. And when I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the map here, there's not really a lot of... I mean, like, if you said that and that was a yes... They would have to conduct an offensive several dozen miles into Belarus to actually create that defensive line. And that's probably what they don't want to do, because that would take time, resources, and effort that a defensive would not incur. So I would say most likely not if it involves actually getting to the bridges in Belarus. But if it's inside of Ukraine, maybe. But the Pripyat River is very, very short in Ukrainian territory, and there's only one bridge just right outside of Chernobyl. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Siri. No, cancel. It actually went off. Let's see. So that person says, "Reality show abandoned on Novaya Zemlya with Vladimir Solovyov, Tucker Carlson, and yourself for 3 months. I'm asking this of everyone, really. Haha."
Thank you for the support. What they're talking about, Matthew, if I remember correctly, is an island where Stalin sent like 300 convicts, and it was literally just a blood bowl. Like, they went there and they were like last person to survive. Like, it was literally Squid Game in real life, if you ever want like a comparison. They're like last person alive, they get off the island. They all ended up killing each other. Like, no one got off the island, I don't think. Like, maybe like 4 people. But it was a bloodbath on that island. And I would do it. You know what? I think I definitely can take on Volodymyr Solovyov. Carlson, though, maybe a little bit of a different story. You see, that confused dog face might throw me off for a couple of seconds. But
that confused dog face is worthy of a Grammy or an Emmy or whatever they get the actors.
Let me see if I can pull this up. Carlson confused. Look, it's literally a Google search. Oh my God! It's literally the pictures.
God!
Oh my God!
What'd you say? That's like how his brain actually functions. Is that look right there?
Like here's the format of his show. Is it really? Charged question ensues. Dog face? And then he does that. And then he just waits for them to answer the question. And then he asks another one in the same tone like this, Matthew. Is it really true that the Alpo Dog Company uses horses in their dog meat? Confused dog face.
This guy
again.
annoys me so badly. Like, just looking at him, like, annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, and also the cadence of like his delivery is really annoying. And I really hate and sometimes I do it, so I'll say this fairly, you know, like I do it sometimes, so sorry if it annoys you, but he does this kind of cadence and tone where he's got everything figured out. Everything is under control and the whole story has come together. And I try and do that as little as possible as we can, like in the Soledar area, you know, we're like, take it with a grain of salt. This is what we got right now. It could be changing. It could have changed in the course of when we got this news. And I think we actually said that at the beginning of tonight's stream when I said it looks like the Ukrainians may still be holding it, but we don't really know. You know, it may have changed. But anyways, he doesn't do that. And that really annoys the hell out of me because usually every story is so in-depth, it's really hard to figure anything out. So I always throw in a couple of options or something. But the guy's annoying. Like, and he's not the only one. You know, we're not trying to, like, single out Fox individually because I know some people who have probably never heard me go on this rant before are going to be like, oh my God, he's a, you know, like, let me literally just say what they're going to say. Oh my God, he doesn't like Fox. He's a liberal. But no, we're apolitical on this channel. We don't pick any side. I've ran on everyone equally. Like, I also find Don Lemon incredibly annoying. Like, he's just annoying.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And also, like, if you want to see a good example of him, pull up that interview that he had with All Gas No Brakes, that guy, and how offended he got at the simple, like, pushback he gave him.
Yeah, I mean, and also, there's a couple of others. I mean, really, honestly, I could go on about all of them. One of the guys that really does annoy me a whole load is Sean Hannity. Not really for his show a little bit, but for the fact that he's always somehow writing a 300-page book every other week. And it's like, how the hell, like the honest truth is that's all ghostwriting. And like his whole entire show is like plugging his books and then also hurrying on into the next ad segment. Like, you know, he'll be like this, Matthew, and just work with me here and play this out. So Matthew, I heard you started working for the Enforcer channel a little early on, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay,
and
thank you so much. We're going to go to an ad break and we'll be right back. It's great to have you on. Like, he does that every single time.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Yeah, you know, I can go on forever about how much I find mainstream news to be annoying, but there's just a couple of instances from both sides to be fair. But anyways, we're going to move on to the next one. Also, sorry for interrupting, Matthew. I had to do that for the thing, but that was still rude. It's still rude.
I'm offended.
Yeah, I'm offended. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
But on another note, though, you want to see if a bot could create artwork? Do you want to see what it looked like?
Yeah, sure. Do you have another one?
Check your Discord DM. Fusha Cohn sent me another one.
What?
Do you see this?
Is that like a raccoon?
I don't know what that is, but it's supposed to say Igor on the board, but I think the AI took it like a different way and it starts spelling gibberish. What's that thing doing on the floor, by the way?
That thing's got a scratchy butt, man. It's just
like show that on the stream. Like this is something.
It is being shown on the stream right now. Also, man, the board literally says Igor. And then you got
this is like inside the mind of a computer. Like this one actually looks like a computer made it.
It's not that bad though. Still, like it still looks not that bad. Like the wall's realistic and everything. I don't know how this works, but you know, interesting. It's weird. The first one was impressive. This one, it looks
strange. It's like nightmare fuel or something.
This looks like something Salvador Dali would make.
Maybe.
You know, like the surrealist painter guy who had like the melted clock painting and the screaming face guy and everything.
Somebody's probably going to get very offended over that in a minute.
Yeah, this is not a Salvador Dali painting. And I'm just saying it's surreal. It's kind of like the same genre. But anyways, that is pretty weird. I thought it was going to be another banger, but that's just kind of odd. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, sorry I'm late. I'll watch it later. We should really stop all that beep and stop atrocities in Ukraine. Russia is nothing. NATO can take them out in 24 hours. Too many innocent people died like this. We're playing politics.
Thank you for the support, Putin. Will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. It's always funny to read out that whole name seriously because that's just a statement. But anyways, I would say we can't really do that. And I understand the sentiments behind it. And I would say go ahead if the Russians didn't have nukes, but they got some. We don't even know how many of them are operational. It may be a very small number of them, just a couple of dozen, maybe a couple of hundred. But a couple of dozen or a couple of hundred will cause damage and deaths in the United States alone that would be astronomically high. And it would make the point of us getting involved to save lives in Ukraine entirely pointless because we would have ended up losing so many lives in the United States because of the nuclear onslaught. So I do understand what you're saying, but I still want to think about what would be the best for the survival of American citizens, and it's it wouldn't be good for them. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to word it. It just wouldn't be good. Millions would die. Tens of millions may die, and that's something that I don't really think it's worth the price. And so far, the Ukrainians are winning the war. And, I'm sure many people are going, but they lost Soledar, I mean. And that's not a big deal. It's a town of 10,000 people. It's a very, very small town. It has no strategic significance at all beyond the current battle. And it's not really worth going and getting tens of millions of people killed in a nuclear exchange for that reason. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Putin will hang in the middle of Kremlin. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, because I would hate to know that the United States got obliterated in a nuclear exchange along with the Russians. But with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. And also, Matthew, I saw some of the bots you got, and that was what was the first one? How do you pronounce that?
I don't even know, but they were saying that they were in debt. They want some money and something else. I don't even know what they were talking about, but they were trying to solicit money.
And also, Bored Ape. What is this?
I don't even know what the hell that was. I don't even know how to interpret it.
That was just a straight up schizo post. Like that's schizo maxing right there. Anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a super chat from Diffuse56, who puts in a $5 donation and says, "I'm headed to bed, so good night all. I'm a proud member of the LSA, and thanks to Matt and the Enforcer and Slava Ukraine." And thank you, Diffuse, very much.
And thank you, Diffuse, for being a proud member of the LSA. I hope everyone wears that badge with pride. And I'm going to tell you all about something that I've actually been emailed about, and we're going to start working on here soon. I actually got an email in my email account from a Ukrainian soldier, believe it or not. And this Ukrainian soldier, in very brief words and in somewhat rough English, which was the authenticating factor that this is certainly a Ukrainian fighting soldier, he sent an email saying that he watches this channel. And if he's watching right now, I hope you've been enjoying the stream, the question segment and all. And he said, believe it or not, y'all are not going to believe this, Igor is his commander. Igor! And Igor is his commander, and they're asking if we could get them Igor merch. And I couldn't believe, first off, that someone from Igor unit is watching. And that was really a high honor to me, to even hear that they were watching and enjoyed it so much they wanted some merch. So we're going to talk to him a little bit more about the details. We're going to see about getting them some Igor merch. We're going to probably turn on the limited edition run again just for us to get some, or just get samples of it, and then send it over there to them so that way they can have Igor merch. I don't know how much we're going to have to end up getting for them, but we're going to make sure to get it for them for free and just send it over there, and we'll just cover the expense, because I think it's really cool that they're watching. It's really cool that we actually showed his commander on stream. And I don't know, maybe if they feel like it, maybe they'll wear it and send a picture back. Maybe they'll even have Igor say his famous line while they're all wearing the shirt on a video. I think that would be super cool.
That would be cool. We could add that to the intro along with the Hammer shell going
Our
off.
intro just becomes 20 minutes long every single night from now. It's just clip after clip after clip. I think, honestly, if we threw in more clips, I'm going to start cutting down the countdown time to like 7 minutes and 30 seconds and then down to 5, and just make the rest of the countdown like the little intro clips or something, because if we had to add more, and we would add more at that point, we'll just start shortening down the countdown so it's actually around 10 minutes instead of getting towards like 13 where it is right now. But with that, I thought that was super cool. And I can't believe that there are Ukrainian soldiers still watching the stream this late in the war. We used to have a lot of them, and a lot of them got a lot more quiet, but it seems as though a decent amount of them are still watching, and they watch enough to know that Igor was on this channel. And I thought that was so cool. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. I thought I'd just share that with you all because it was a really cool thing I saw in my email. And if you are watching, I did respond to the email because he actually was like, no response. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was like, hey, wait a minute. We saw it. But with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Anthony Bestwick, who says, Soledar is a lot more important than you think. 100-foot deep mine for ammo, a fuel troop depot that can't be bombed, and look at Pen Wafan.
And thank you for the support. Bakhmut, Soledar is not that important, because if it was, my thing is as if it was a hardened shelter bunker pretty much for ammunition, how come the Ukrainians didn't use it? They didn't use it at all for ammunition storage. And on top of that, I'm sure that a lot of the larger elevators that would have worked to get down into the salt mine don't really work anymore. I don't know if the salt mine was still running or not. From what I've heard, it doesn't really sound like it was. You can see a lot of it's been turned into a tourist location. So I don't really know. I don't feel like it was that important of a town, though, and I'm going to stick to that in my opinion. I will say, though, it may be a little bit more important than I'm giving it credit to, and I will be more than happy to be proved wrong on that in the future, but to me, it wasn't that important of a town, beyond its significance in the current battle, and it being the first line of defense in the northern flank. But everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and if you think that, we'll see, and we'll see if it was more important in the future or not. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Right. And also, I saw Misk77 and also Panama Floyd say that they want to contact you to help contribute to the, sending the merch over to the Igor Commander, I think.
Interesting. DM me on Discord, the Boltiche, if y'all want to help out, and we'll see what we can do. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dubsy Dapster, who says, Enforcer, you've really found your voice, along with other voices. Glory to Pineapple and Whiskey. Slava Ukraine.
And I thank you for the support. And what do they mean by that, Matthew? Do you know the context behind that?
I think they're meaning like all the various voices you do, like Sam Elliott and stuff like that.
Oh. Well, I got to thank you so much once again for the support, because without folks like you, I wouldn't be able to sit here and triumphantly do my voices the way I do. Of course, y'all are just about everything right now, and helping this thing to keep on running. And without y'all, Sam Elliott wouldn't be able to grace the airwaves of this channel, and he wouldn't be able to sit here and come up with entertaining stuff for me to say. And Mike Tyson wouldn't be here either, because Mike Tyson was just something I did for fun around the house and I annoyed my mom with. And so it's actually crazy to think that through y'all's support, I've slowly been able to do these over time and come up with a wide variety of voices to do, so that way everyone could be entertained as we continue to cover the news of the war in Ukraine. And so I have to thank you all so much once again. I had to sit here and remember this one for a second, because for some reason, I totally forgot I could do it. But you know someone who never forgot me? Rosie O'Donnell. Never forgot me. Never once. But I gotta thank you so much.
Donald. Nobody handles classified docs better than me. Donald.
It's like every single president is what happened? Putting classified documents in and then lying pony face soldier. What happened? Anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. And I guess we did find my voice in one way or another. And so with that, I'm going to have to be honest with you all here. I think I'm getting sick. I don't really know, but my voice and my vocal cords not feeling that hot. But thank you once again. I hope that did address the comment fairly well. And we're going to have to hit low enforcer for the rest of the stream like this, because this is really my natural range. And it feels better. So with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Kraken is going around,
I don't know what that means, but we're on to the next.
They're giving that menacing name to the virus now. It's called Kraken.
Like the Kraken unit?
Yeah, it's not BA.5 anymore. It's Kraken.
They had to
BA.5 wasn't menacing enough.
Yeah, they had to make it more menacing. Next thing you know, they're going to call it the school wiper because it's going to be wiping out schools or something like that to freak out all those kids. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat, once again from Michael Elmore. And he was telling me that he wanted to attach a message to it. But Michael, if you sent it, I did not see it in the live chat. Make sure to put @EnforcerMatt with no space in between the name, and I will be sure to revisit this one. But thank you very much for the support once again. And up next, we have a $5 donation from Hansyman77, who says, I'm Mr. Something, look at me.
Well, I thank you for the support. I would look at you, but I don't know what you are. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep rolling, because if it wasn't for viewers like you, it wouldn't be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $3 super chat from Rocco World Domination, who says, Ikoko ni Ikogi, and Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini, and thank you so much for the support. I don't know what that means, but Mr. Worky. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And big shout out to Dupper Bob for putting in a $2 donation, and thank you very much for that once again, Dupper. Up next we have
every day, every single day.
Oh, every day,
every day, and I got to thank you for that, Dupper Bob, because I never miss it, and I got to thank you so much once again for helping this channel out continuously.
Yes, thank you, Dupper. Up next, we have a $3 super chat from Rocco World Domination once again. A salt mine is the last place you would store anything made of metal. In the potash mine where I work, everything gets totally corroded from the salt.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, and that is true. And that was another thing I was thinking about. Salt is somewhat corrosive. I didn't think about that the first time completely. I was like, there's some reason why you wouldn't want to store things in a salt mine, but that is definitely the reason. You hit it right on the nail, and I couldn't think about it earlier, but it is definitely the salt. And while it may be underground, you don't want to put anything metallic in salt because, you know, it doesn't really do well down there. But with that, thank you so much once again for support and reminding us all that salt is a corrosive material. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, as promised, I have returned after starting my job.
Hey, and welcome back. I hope you've been having a fun time at your job. And while Matthew's sitting over there mocking me right now for trying to make sure that I don't start gagging from talking too much. But I got to thank you so much for the support. And I hope you've been having fun at your job. We have been wondering how you've been doing at that job. And if you want to share with us a little extra detail, let us know, and we'll try and read it off. But with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Moving on to the live chat now. Up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Mark Hodges, C-Fay, JP's RCs, and also Cliff Simonson. Welcome, Cliff, to the club. Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, Morse code says, the Wagner unit sucks so much, they lose a town they just took. Slava LSA and Slava Ukraine.
And
Igor.
And ding, 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 that is correct. That was the correct Morse code message, but the message isn't correct anymore. They were holding on to it when we were making the news and when I made that Morse code message, but they weren't holding on to it in the middle of the stream. They actually ended up losing it there. So y'all did get the Morse code message correct, but on my end, that was wrong. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank y'all once again for doing that every single day of the year, pretty much.
And returning back to Michael Elmore's super chat that was spoken about earlier, he says, why don't Ukraine use Dylan's Gatling gun?
Dylan's Gatling gun. Let me pull that one up real quick. Dylan.
Spelled D-I-L-L-O-N.
I got it right. Yeah, I got it right. Dylan Gatling gun. Oh, a minigun. Yeah, a minigun. I wonder why. It's probably very expensive to use, and you don't really see these things used much anywhere. It's kind of like these things have fallen out of favor a little bit from what I've been able to tell. But I don't know. Maybe they're just used very rarely. I feel like they're expensive. But I don't really know. I don't really know a lot about Gatling guns. I know a lot of people are into miniguns and Gatling guns and stuff, but I'm really not. But what are you about to say about it, Matthew?
Oh, well, I was going to say something. I was going to say it takes a whole motor to rotate the barrel, so that's another thing that can break.
That's true. And with something like That's definitely not a minigun or a Gatling gun of any kind. With a gun like this M2 50 cal, it seems, there's not many mechanical parts that can break down on something like this. Unlike a Gatling gun, Matthew's right, a little electric motor can eventually break down, and that's not anything you want when you're actually doing anything that's a little bit messy or dirty. And also, look, this one's on a tripod.
Oh, like a camera. Takes a camera shooting to a whole new meaning. I'm going to shoot you today.
All right, get ready for the little photo shoot.
Yeah.
Anyways, that we are on to the next one. That's probably the reason why we haven't seen them.
All right. And with that being said, we're on to our next live chat question. And the next one goes to Hoodoo, Texas, who says, what confirmation is there that the Leopard or Challengers committed to be sent?
The joint announcement by the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom and the Polish Ministry of Defense, that is the proof. And so with that, and real quick, let me pull it up over here so that way, let's see, UK MOD, Ministry of Defense. Let me go to their website. Let me go find the news. Let me go find it, Governor. Why is this website so hard to navigate? You can't even find anything on it. Outrageous. Outrageous. Oh, God. Let's see here. Let's see. Yes. Yes. The British Army homepage. It's most likely on the British Army. Yes, I accept all the cookies. News and events. Stay in the know. So let's see, I'm trying to find it, you see. But then once again, the news is hard to go over. They're only covering things on here like Sandhurst and all that. British tanks to Ukraine. Let me pull that up. Yes. So let me try and find this a little bit more. Practically everyone in the world reported it, so that gives it a little bit of validity. But unfortunately, I can't really navigate the British government sites to really find news. So with that, I hope that addresses the question the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Alan, who says, "Is the Wagner Group protected by the Human Rights Convention?"
No. I don't really know how to explain it, but I've had it explained to me before, and the answer was just no. So, you know,
They're not a state.
Yeah, they're not a state, and also they're not an official fighting force. They're mercenaries, so you can actually give them dropsy disease, and there's really nothing anyone can do or say about it. It's really just a matter of whether you want to commit a crime against humanity at that point to treat them unfavorably as a prisoner. But with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Joe Taylor, who says, "Why do y'all think Russia hasn't hit Ukrainian parliament building or presidential buildings yet?"
Because those attacks, right now the Russians are saying that they're going after military and strategic targets and they're just missing or something like that. And then they finally admitted they're hitting the power grid. Hitting a governmental building means everything's on the table. You know, assassins could just be going for Putin every single day. The Kremlin could be attacked by a Tu-141. Everything could go absolutely end over end if they attack a government building directly. And that's the reason why they haven't been attacked. Also, if you ever notice, in the Second World War, the German bombers ended up bombing Parliament building, and in return, the British would start bombing the Reich Chancellery and things like that in Berlin, because it was only fair. And once you attack something like that, government buildings are now on the table for Ukraine as well in their playbook, and that's probably the reason why. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have two more to get to before we're going to round down the stream. So up next, we have a question from Saswai90, who says, "Why do you think the Russians are usually roaming around alone away from their unit?"
Because they have no organization. There's really no I guess you could say, like, strategy or organization or tactics that a Russian squad uses. So if someone just wants to walk off, they just walk off, and there's really nothing anyone does about it. They don't make sure to keep them in visual range. They don't send a battle buddy with them or anything like that. They just walk off and get blown away. So with that, I hope that answers the question the best I can. And I think we're on to the final one of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Duncan VR, who says, question, in reality, could a BMP really destroy a Bradley in a head-on assault?
Yes, it could. The BMP-2's 2A42 autocannon does have enough pin on its own to be able to take out a Bradley. And if it had a Concours on the roof, or Attackas on the side, like a BMP-2M has, it could hit the Bradley with those and knock it out as well. So yes, it can be knocked out, but there is a difference in engagement distances with the Bradley and a BMP. The Bradley supposedly will have a longer engagement distance because of its TOW 2s, or TOW 2Bs, and also its 25mm Bushmaster. It also has improved optics as well, which allows it to find targets easier and engage them most likely first. But hypothetically, if they went head-on at each other at the same range and they were both within firing distance, yes, a BMP-2 could take out a Bradley. But with that, I hope that does answer the question the best we can. And with that, this is the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover the news with all of y'all tonight and go through this question segment. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button, hit the thumbs up, and also subscribe as well, and comment once this thing becomes a video, because that really helps it out. And so with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and everyone stay safe. And so with that, good luck, take care, have a great night, and Slava Ukraini! Yeehaw!
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що